probably give me a, is there like a URL?
There is, but we're live now, so I'll figure it out.
Oh.
Hang on. Let's get this beer sorted as well. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Having a conversation with Razorfist. It's probably going to be pretty good.
I'd like to think so.
I just tweeted out the link to the conversation, so you can retweet that, I think.
Excellent.
Should have a link to the... Yeah, so... We're going to be talking about shit. First thing you want to talk about was Alistair Pinsov, wasn't
it? Yeah. Well, I mean, you and I have both talked about the whole Alistair Pinsov, Chloe Segal thing. That, I mean, that, and not only that, but was it Holly Green? Even before that.
I'm not familiar with Holly Green. Who's she?
That was another situation where she had accused Destructoid management of sexual harassment, and then she was blackballed. And that was long before Alistair Pinsov. And sadly, Gamergate hasn't taken as great an interest in her case, although she hasn't really helped her cause via Twitter. There's been quite a bit of acrimony leveled at Gamergate on her Twitter. But it was a really fucked up situation, and people should be talking about it, because once again, it's just Yanier Gonzalez jerking himself off with his own fucking website policy.
Yeah, it fucking sounds like it. I mean, I feel really bad for Pinsov, man. I mean, can you imagine doing the right thing, telling the truth, and then getting fucking shit canned for it? I mean,
and then having to toe the company line after the fact, to add insult to injury, having to act like, oh, well, I feel bad for telling the truth. It's like, why? Why in the world would you feel bad that you outed someone for running a fraudulent Kickstarter campaign?
Yeah, you should be fucking rewarded for that shit. You're warning people what they're supposed to be spending their money on, and you're telling them the truth about the situation. What the fuck is wrong with that?
Yeah.
But, what can you do?
Just a heads up to everybody watching. I believe this guy just knocked back a brew. Or 17.
I'm drinking Peroni like a fucking continental pussy. But,
so you're knocking back a brew or 17, and I'm doing the do. So depressant meets stimulant. This ought to be a curious little clash of the chemicals going on here.
I have a funny feeling that it will be, especially as I'm not much of a drinker. So
yeah.
So let's start by do you want to tell people about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Razorfist. I do a video game / bad cheesy 80s mustache bedecked action movies review show on YouTube. I also do a show called Metal Mythos where I review metal albums, also review music albums. I did a Michael Jackson episode as well, and I'm going to do more of those. But yeah, that's basically what I do. It's a no bullshit kind of situation. It's exactly what is advertised. It's reviews with balls. So that's essentially what I do. I also occasionally do vlogs. I don't like a lot of scripting. I like more what people like, say, Spoonie or somebody like that are doing, where they just kind of fly off the seat of their pants. I do use an outline, but that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah. That's awesome. And are you ever going to get around to doing a Predator 2 review?
I do like me some Danny Glover. I'm just throwing that out there. I do.
Man, I came across you by your Predator review, and I was oh man, I had an erection the whole way through it. I swear to God, I was just like, fuck this is amazing.
You have no idea when Taran Gell, who's the guy who edits a lot of my videos, not all of them, but a fair few of them. When he edited together that scene where Arnold lights the fire and goes, oh, and then it zooms out to like, it just keeps zooming out, and you can hear it in outer space and in the Andromeda Galaxy. Like, I laughed my balls clean off my body, because he came up with that completely himself. But that's half the fun of doing the show, is just seeing what he comes up with and being like, oh God, we're going to be ostracized from human society for this. Never changed.
No, man, honestly, it was the fucking best review of anything I've ever seen. It's almost better than the film.
That's what I try to do. I gotta believe. Considering, like, I reviewed The Legend of Chun-Li and managed to make it watchable, I consider that an accomplishment. Like, that's...
I think so. I haven't seen that one, but I'll check that out.
No. Not by any stretch of the imagination.
So, was there anything in the Pinsov interview that surprised you?
Nothing surprised. That's the sad part. Absolutely nothing about it surprised me. A lot of it had already been covered on the One Angry Gamer blog, so shout out to that. I thought they did a really good job of covering. Yeah, they initially did a really good job of covering the controversy initially. It was weird. Like, Destructoid, for a little while, when Gamergate started up, kind of had this force field up. Like, nobody wanted to criticize them. I don't know why. And then it seemed like after the Alistair Pinsoff thing came out, that force field kind of came down, and then it was open season. But I think the operative malady at Destructoid has always been this sort of obdurate insistence that every story must comply with the exigencies of politically correct discourse. Like, any fact reported via Destructoid first has to file through like 15 separate filters, each one caked with more ideological horseshit than the last, until it finally conforms to their didactic concept of decency, basically.
I don't think that's unique to Destructoid. I
don't think it's unique to them either. I mean, certainly see it.
The Escapist is the only one that I can think of that doesn't do that, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
the sad part is through that filtration process, you take a story, an original story, that goes basically from like a glacier-sized scoop to a fucking sugar cube-sized little fluff piece, basically. It's beyond... It's political correctness on steroids. It's anabolic political correctness is what it is.
It fucks me off more than anything as well, because it's... And I don't want... When I first started doing YouTube, right, I first started doing it because I was getting really pissed off with the amount of bullshit I was seeing around, and just the amount, the sheer raw, just unbelievable things that people would do and say in the media, and I couldn't believe it. Things, like the NSA, where it's like, right, we're gonna wiretap everything, everywhere, and if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, and it's like, no, that's not how it fucking works. It's because I've got nothing to hide that I've got nothing to fear, and you don't need to fucking look, But I was hearing that bullshit all the time. I was like, right, I'm gonna fucking make some videos addressing that shit. And now here I am going, look, right, I don't trust any of these people. I'm just gonna assume they're all guilty. I am as bad as I thought that fucking everyone else was when I first started. Is the problem? But I can't trust any of them. Why should anyone trust any of them? I mean, you've got Kotaku coming out going, yeah, well, we're all about bias. Actually, it's like, what? Fucking what? Why are you saying these things?
Yeah. Not only said they're all about bias, but basically said being unbiased is no longer a quality to admire at all.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you have a meeting? Like, when I didn't hear this. Somebody told Mr. Spock, apparently. I don't know.
Where the fuck did this idea come from, and why is it fucking laudable? Why are they all patting each other on the back going, yeah, subjectivity is, it's all we need, really. It's going to get straight to the truth of the matter. It's like, what?
You know what I think this boils down to? I think it boils down to the fact that thanks to YouTube coming along and kind of stealing traditional gaming journalism's thunder with pure subjectivity, I mean, that's what YouTube is at the end of the day, is pure subjectivity. They've basically realized they have to abandon what little high ground they had left. I think that's a component. Certainly their own profligate, greedy horseshit has an awful lot to do with it. But I think some of it has to do with them attempting to ape YouTube just a little bit.
Oh, YouTube, like game coverage?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
You see it all the time. Even the way their articles are written now are very jokey. You used to have some humor, and I mean, God, you got over there in the UK probably when you were growing up, you had PC Zone magazine, right?
We did, and PC Gamer, and I mean, I used to read Amiga Power for fuck's sake.
The reason I mentioned PC Zone is because Charlie Brooker wrote for them for years.
No, did he?
Yeah, he was at that magazine for years. I mean, that's basically where Yahtzee got his whole shtick from, as I've always assumed anyways, because they write kind of the same. But
they do.
Yeah, he was like the Yahtzee of the 90s, essentially. So but he's basically a irascible nerd who picked apart games and stuff. But he was a comedy writer, but he was also a journalist at the same time. So it's kind of
Have you seen where he's gone these days? He's full-on social justice warrior.
Oh, absolutely.
He writes for the fucking Guardian, which is just it's essentially the Jezebel of newspapers, and just fucking. There was I hate to say this, but there's an article on The Guardian today or yesterday about a guy saying, you know what, why don't we just abolish urinals and we can all pee sitting down? It's like, why the fuck are you writing this? Guardian, why are you paying him to write this? You know, what the fuck is this? There was a time when The Guardian was a respected newspaper, man. It's just like, fucking what?
You don't really like the hard-hitting urinal pie story?
And he's not even thinking about what it's going to do to the urinal cake fucking industry. He's not even thinking that's people's jobs there, you dipshit. You know?
All I can say is at least he's got his priorities straight, huh?
Well, that's the thing, though, right? I mean, if you look at Charlie Brooker these days, if you look at him like 10 years ago, he was a normal fucking dude. Look at him now, and he's got this fucking hipster haircut, and he's, I don't know, just got this fucking attitude where he's joined the social justice crew, man. And it's holier-than-thou fucking...
It's funny to watch so many of the social justice folks kind of crawl into the woodwork now that Gamergate has picked up steam. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of them, prior to Gamergate, were waving their SJW flags, have kind of been like, I'm just going to take a wait-and-see approach, when all along, you know, they barely tolerate your very existence. Like, all along, they're just gritting their teeth. I know...
They're keeping their fucking heads under the trench because they know that people are going to dig up their shit if they open their fucking mouths. You know, and all of these people, that's what pisses me off the most about this, right? Is that almost all of them are so fucking corrupt, which is, I'm sure that's why they're all defending each other. Is because they all know they've got something that they've, you know, and it might be something small, but they have got to where they are now, not because they're the best people for the job, not because they got there on their own merits, but it's who they knew. It's always been who they knew, and now they are where they are because of it, and they're thinking, shit, you know, this has turned into a massive fucking shitstorm, and I don't want to become the target.
Yeah, and when I'm talking, a perfect example of that is the Game Journal Pros thing as it relates to Destructoid, because there are literal screenshots of them mocking Alistair Pinsoff, and effectively, informally blacklisting him, like right in front of your eyes. Like, guys, be smart about this. Don't hire the asshole. Like, literally saying this in an open forum for gaming journalists.
I can't remember where I saw it, and it was some fucking jackass. Well, it's not an official blacklist, and so it doesn't have to be an official blacklist.
Yeah, that's the worst part. Like, I hate to quote Bill O'Reilly, but I'm going to. I remember Bill O'Reilly saying something. No, I remember this. You remember several years back, this would have been like 2003, 2004, they came after Bill O'Reilly for a memo that was in his office instructing people to slant news, or slant a particular story, and he was like, and he was interviewed about this, and his exact words, I'll never forget them, were, what about the competition where they're all on the same page so they don't have to tell each other to slant the news? And I'm like, I gotta say, Billy makes a good point.
I hate to say that Billy makes a good point, but that is exactly the kind of groupthink that has taken hold in the gaming media. It's creepy. It's fucking creepy. It's like they've been I can't even think of a good fucking analogy. There must be some sci-fi analogy where this has happened.
Sci-fi analogy?
You know, some kind of fucking worm that's got into their brains or something and just fucking made more.
What does it say that we have to resort to brain worms in order to provide an adequate analogy? Wow. But no,
well, that's the problem.
That was the whole. You have to understand too. Like, this is kind of weird. Certain people at Destructoid will call out by name, like Yanni A. Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
Sterling gets a pass. He was on the editorial board. Like, Alistair Pinsoff, one of the reasons like that was such a big deal is Alistair Pinsoff wasn't just a run-of-the-mill journalist. He was a news editor. Like, he was actually on the editorial board. It wasn't just some schmuck.
I never used to read Destructoid, so I'm a bit sort of unsure about what's going on over there.
Well, Jim Sterling was on the. He was on the editorial board at Destructoid at the time. He was the website's review editor for several years, and who is a flag-waving member of Game Journal Pros. And actually, I believe he has defended Game Journal Pros on numerous occasions.
What, Sterling has defended Game Journal Pros?
Yes, I believe he has, and I believe it was actually on Facebook. I've been told this.
In English, that pisses me off.
Don't quote me on this. This is like secondhand knowledge, but from from what I understand, he had defended on Facebook. So, but I do know that he belongs to Game Journal Pros, and he's privy to that entire mailing list. So he's sitting there watching all of this, and this occurred in 2012, and he remained employed there for 2 years. So, like, whether people want to admit it or not, he's involved. He's up to his man boobs in the Alistair Pinsoft cover-up. He had to be. You know, I would argue if he's in that position, he would have to have been. He ought to have been. He was on the editorial board. So, like,
he can't possibly have been ignoring it.
I'm sorry, what?
He can't possibly have been ignoring it. I mean, if he's on the editorial staff,
he's either complicit or he's willfully ignorant. So it's always been kind of puzzling to me. I mean, at face value, I understand why we overlooked Sterling's involvement. It's not that he isn't a worthwhile subject for reproach. I think it's that people like Yanier Gonzalez were so active in colluding with fellow journalists to blackball Pinsoft and Holly Green, presumably while twirling his Snidely Whiplash mustache. I think he made himself a far more tempting target. That's what it was. But the fact is, Sterling was intimately involved in the daily whitewashing of Destructoid. Everything he published was buffed to a blinding sheen by the vacuous veneer of political correctness. Like, even at the expense of the truth. No, seriously, like, did you ever watch my Deus Ex retrospective?
I didn't. Oh, no, I think I might have done, but go over the points you were referring to.
Well, when Deus Ex Human Revolution was released, Jim Sterling, and this was almost on day one of launch, published an article all but calling Eidos Montreal racist for a black female character who was voiced by a black female character whose performance lay somewhere between, like, Butterfly McQueen from Gone with the Wind and a fucking Zataran's Dirty Rice commercial. Like, she was like, "Shit, Captain, like, I don't know nothing about birthing no babies." Like, I can understand at face value. He published this. The problem was he published this without speaking to Eidos Montreal for comment, without reaching out to the voice actress. In short, he did all the legwork you would expect from someone who hasn't seen his legs in a decade. So, the problem, like, have you played Deus Ex Human Revolution, the director's cut, at all?
You know, I have not.
If you play it with the commentary feature enabled, Eidos Montreal actually they're doing their little commentary, and they explain that they didn't actually come up with that character. The voice actress, who, like, again, I said it's black, she came up with this idea for sort of a Queen of the Bums character who was dressed in rags and had pet rats and shit. Like, she was going to be an urban sage that Jensen would just ply for information on the criminal underworld, and I guess what happened is they couldn't model the character before launch, so she wound up just being a generic black lady on the street. And, okay, on the face of it, a simple misunderstanding. But Jim Sterling, all he had to do was send an email off, spend 5 seconds firing off an email, and bam, he could have learned, like, holy shit, like, go ahead and do your fucking job. Find out why that happened. But he didn't. He would rather just post a little article that says, oh, well, this is slightly racist, and then just move on, like, having thrown this fucking accusation out there. That's always been my problem with Destructoid. Like, the breasticles phenomenon is, like, in full bloom over there, and that's not all Sterling, and Sterling hasn't been there for a long time, but...
This is actually my kind of problem with all of it. Actually, is the moral critiquing of video games and the audience. I'm really not fucking interested in any of these fucking ballless sacks of fucking shit telling me what is good or bad about me as a person or the games I'm playing. I don't give a fuck whether they think it's racist, sexist, whatever their goddamn is that they have. I'm not interested in fucking hearing it.
Yeah, I said in my video, like I hate to break this to you, but like I've been to the South. There are just some people who speak like a Zatarans commercial. Like, I'm sorry, it's sometimes you walk down the street and it's like fucking Bamboozled. Like, people are just that way. It's not racist to have a character in a game that is that way. It's kind of unrealistic to not have a wide variety of different characters. Like, does it have to be a fucking McDonald's commercial? Do we have to have one Hispanic and one white guy and one black guy, and they all have to speak in a perfect generic North American English accent? You know what I mean? It's
no.
It's dog shit.
It pisses me off, and like they're the fucking arbiters of morality anyway. I mean, of all the people to be telling me that something is immoral in any way, these fuckers are not the people. You know? You guys can shut your fucking mouths and just fuck off. You know what I mean? I'm
well, you mean the guys who review fucking games that they just received a free computer from the developer to play on? Those guys are.
I wanted to talk to you about that. After I didn't see that fucking thing. What was it again? Where Microsoft guys giving away Xboxes to all the journalists.
Yeah, that happened in 2010. I want to say. Yeah, you can look it up. It's on YouTube. The whole fucking thing. And I remember seeing it at the time and thinking, "Oh, that's really cool." Microsoft kind of stole the show, and then I slammed on the brakes. I slammed on the brakes, and I was like, "Wait a minute! I just witnessed Microsoft pay off the entire audience." Like,
exactly. But more than that, it's the guy standing up, the fucking guy standing up and going, "Oh my god," standing up and applauding. Thank God someone was finally brave enough to give me a free fucking Xbox. Thank fucking God someone finally did it. I mean, what the fuck are you standing up and applauding for? You
you know what the best part of that is? The footage of the big fat guy standing up and applauding. That footage, if you look off to the left, like two rows behind him, you can see a young Colin Moriarty from IGN sitting behind him in the audience.
Really? And what's his expression like?
I'm gonna have to break this down like the Zapruder film, like back and to the left.
I just couldn't believe it, man. I was just like, okay, yeah, no, you fucking, they just, God, they just don't understand. I just can't believe this is the circumstance in the video game industry. It's larger than the fucking film industry, and it's full of dipshits and fucking ideologues getting bought off by major companies and then talking down to their audience as if they know better than anyone somehow on the issue of morality and decency. And it's just like, wow. And then Gamergate comes along, and everyone's it's trying to get women out of the game industry. It's like, how can you? Why would all of these companies have updated their goddamn ethics policies if it was about fucking women in gaming, you morons?
No, and that is classic. That's classic misdirection. I mentioned it in my Gamergate vlog. I strongly believe people like Sarkeesian and so forth got involved in combating the Gamergate thing because they can't win the discussion on corrupt gaming journalism, but they've got an entire media that is bought and paid for on the subject of feminism, so they know they can win that argument by default because there isn't going to be an argument. The media is just automatically going to declare them the victor. So here's some fucking misdirection. Here you go. Like, hey, look, white rabbits running over there. Like, no, that's fucking... You have to stay... Gamergate has to stay completely on topic. 100%, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of them are chasing white rabbits down bunny holes and taking their eye off the ball a little bit.
That's actually something I'm a bit worried about myself, and that's, I mean, I don't know whether you've been paying attention or anyone listening has been paying attention, but, I mean, if you look at my last, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 Gamergate videos, something like that, they have been very much focused on the corruption, the nepotism, the hypocrisy in the industry. Yeah. And that is the winning thing. That's how, literally, they can sit there and go on about fucking women and feminism and whatever they want as much as they want. But if every time someone comes to look at what we do and sees game journalism, ethical violations, hypocrisy, all this sort of stuff, there is just, what are they going to think? You know, they're just going to look at it and go, well, they don't really seem to be talking about women. You know, it's like. So,
no,
yeah,
it's like I mean, I called my series The Downfall of Gaming Journalism, not the downfall of stinky feminist vaginas. Like, it's, you're concentrated on journalism, and for the most part, it seems to stay pretty on message. I just think the feminism thing, because the SGW, SG1, no, the
SG1
thing, I think it galls people so much that they get kind of knocked off message for a minute, because it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction, because the things they are so goddamn ridiculous. I mean, they're just so ridiculous. I mean, manspreading? Are you fucking shitting me? Is this even a thing?
Did you see the man slamming thing? The woman was like, right, I'm just going to walk ahead and not move out of the way of anyone. And lo and behold, she bumped into men. Oh, that is now a new thing called man slamming. Talk about first world fucking problems. You know,
man slamming is what Hulk Hogan did to Andre the Giant at WrestleMania. That's man slamming. Eat it.
Yeah, and it's what the Undertaker did to Hulk Hogan. You know.
Yeah, and you know what? You really can tell where the SJW thing is going when you look at their spokespeople, because those people are the ideal. Like, Anita Sarkeesian, can I just say this, like, to your... I know she'll never listen to this in her life, but Anita Sarkeesian, can I just say, with all that pancake makeup, how much concealer did you use on your fucking personality exactly? Like, the bitch is a blank. She's tabula rasa, the human being. Like, there's nothing there. I mean, granted, she's been given words to say. They're not her words for the most part. So that...
I don't think they've ever been her words. Yeah. Even in her fucking dissertation at university, she has to thank Jonathan McIntosh for basically doing all the work for her. And Jonathan McIntosh is a fucking fruit. I'm sure you know who he is.
Yeah. No, and I am glad, fringe benefit of people focusing on the SJW thing, they seem to have reoriented their ire where it belongs, to the man behind the curtain operating the Anita Sarkeesian life-sized android. They've got the full Macintosh hashtag going, and I think that's a good orientation. But I think, look, there's nothing wrong with calling them on their bullshit. I'm not saying that at all. I just think that Gamergate and this SJW thing are two separate issues and should stay separate. It doesn't mean you can't be against one and for the other, whatever. It doesn't mean you can't pursue both at the same time. But I think Gamergate will be better off if it has more focus and doesn't get sidetracked by the feminist dog shit.
No, I totally agree with you. And I made that mistake when all of this first came out myself, because the problem is that the feminist dog shit is so intrinsically entwined with the corruption. That's the problem. All of the people who are like the most corrupt are the most fucking SJW,
Yeah.
And they are the ones who are pushing an agenda. There are literally academic feminists meeting with feminists in Silverstring media to try and promote. Literally, they say things like, "What are we doing to push feminism into gaming?" That is a verbatim quote from Adrian Shaw, the woman responsible for this death of gamers bullshit. And she's saying it to Maya Felix Kramer of Silverstring Media, who is then friends with fucking Anita Sarkeesian, Leigh Alexander, and they are the megaphones who dictate down to the bottom layer of the pathetic, small-time fucking no-hoping game journos who are on the Game Journo Pro list, going, "Oh, we should get Zoe Quinn a present." What? It's just like, it's, and I agree with you. I agree with you that we have to just focus on journalists, because I mean, I try to keep it separate what I do when I criticize feminism to when I criticize the game journalists. There's no need to bring up feminism when dealing with the journalists, but I mean, it is all coming from the same fucking poisoned well, They've injected themselves into the discussion, though. They did that. That was a calculated maneuver. They wanted that because that was an argument that it wasn't that they were winning it, because they never really were. It's that the media just declared them victors without there ever being a discussion. So they thought, basically they called in the cavalry because they were getting their asses kicked on the Gamergate issue, as they should be, because they simply do not have facts on their side. They don't have a position. They don't have a leg to stand on. No, everything they say is that it's an attack on women. Well, as soon as it's shown not to be an attack on women, oh my God,
Yeah.
they've got nothing.
Well, and then even when you examine the mouthpiece, I mean, you gotta love, like, oh, this is too white, and this game's too white, and this, yeah, you gotta love racial critiques. You gotta love racial critiques that were assembled in an editorial room that is more white than Edgar Winter fully nude in a blizzard. Like, yeah, I trust what you're telling me, sure. Oh God, and that's a classic case of what I'm talking about, though.
When it comes to I swear to God, when it comes to the social justice warriors, everything they say is exactly true about themselves. Like everything. I can't even think of an example off the top of my head. But next time they say something to you, or you see them saying something, just think, does that apply to themselves? And you'll find that it fucking does.
Yeah. Sorry about that. My phone just went off. I'm on the air, and I did not mute my phone. I officially lose my internet credentials.
You know what? This is the first conversation I've ever had with anyone where I actually turn my phone off. So be fucking honoured.
I am honored. I simply didn't return the favor, apparently.
Yeah, you son of a bitch. But yeah, on the social justice warrior thing, it really pisses me off how it seems to be that anyone who I'm going to use like feminist academic terminology here, but performs as I know. Mate, I've read so much of their bullshit, and I cannot believe some of the bullshit that is considered to be academic. But they use the term perform. The identities are performed, and like for example, we are performing the identities of gamers when we're talking about these sort of things like this. I know.
It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I swear to God, fucking is. But yeah. So they it seems like anyone who like performs as a social justice warrior is suddenly given a free fucking pass. They can be just as corrupt as the rest of them, and everyone's fine with it. And
it's just like how Anita Sarkeesian is allowed to criticize gaming without actually being a gamer to begin with, and after openly decrying gaming as a form, like.
Or ever being subject to any kind of criticism. Any fucking kind of criticism.
And not even have to purchase the games that she's criticizing either, which is fun times. Good.
You couldn't make it up, could you? You couldn't make it up.
No, you really could. You couldn't script it any better.
No, it's honestly, I don't want to get my tinfoil hat out or something, but it's hard not to believe that this isn't planned by some shady government agency or something.
And they're not exactly helping their cause either. When you've got game journo pros, where we have these issues that are just discussed and rediscussed in private mailing lists that are exclusive to industry insiders that read like the fucking Potsdam summit of narcissistic bullshit. Right? It is impossible to shake the feeling that there's some kind of collusion going on. And I'm not even that paranoid of a person, you know what I mean? Like I'm not that guy. I'm usually the guy who's like, yeah, I'm not a truther, I'm not one of those guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
Too well orchestrated.
Well, yeah, that was the thing,
when you're dealing with a movement like Gamergate that started because of the Gamers Are Dead thing, which was so fucking engineered. I mean, just so goddamn, this website said it, then this website said it, then this one said it. I mean, you can understand where some
articles in a day, wasn't it? Something like that. Unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. And that's the thing, right? And the worst part about all of this, right, is that, I mean, I enjoy a good conspiracy. I'm happy to whack a tinfoil hat on and see, where the rabbit hole goes sort of thing. But at any point I can take it off and go, okay, to be fair, being honest, using Occam's razor, is probably just a bunch of fucking incompetent dipshits copying each other. And that's what I honestly think. I mean, there may well have been certain levels of collusion, but I really think that it's more just a dangerous kind of groupthink, where Alexander says something.
I think it is basically is kind of the Associated Press effect. Every fucking newspaper that you read cites the Associated Press. because the Associated Press is a fucking newswire, right? So they get the scoops, and then everybody else regurgitates it. It's kind of that, except there's no real Associated Press in gaming. It's just
exactly.
And we should probably talk about this. We were already planning on talking about the death of joystick, but like the way that video game journalism is now that all these websites are going out of business and sponsors are pulling out, and everything is getting so consolidated. Now you're basically in a situation where back in the day, people used to go to one gaming website and they'd log in every day without fail, right? Like back in the day, I was big into GameSpy, and I'd go there every fucking day. Long before the IGN buyout, thank God. But before they turned into a comedy website. But anyways, like that's how it used to be. Nowadays, it's not that way at all. You generally will go to any website that has the story. Basically, you'll kind of skip around. Oh,
it's
this
the same story on every website as well.
Yeah, exactly, and everybody picks up the story from the other websites, as reported on GameSpot. This fucking happened, right? And so
it's fucking laziness.
Exactly, and I don't think it's the whole story. I think the initial flurry was probably coordinated, but everything after that, the cascade effect that happened was absolutely just self-quotation. It was the fact that it's gotten so incestuous.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? And what annoys me about this is that people have trouble with nuance. You know, when you're spreading information, nuance is an issue. This is we should talk about fucking social justice warriors and the concept of narrative in a bit. But this is the problem. This is why social justice warriors are so good at what they do. They go to university, they do their communication courses, which aren't journalism courses. They are propaganda courses. I have actually looked these up, and I'm not kidding. They learn about Edward Bernays and Saul Alinsky. The two people you should not learn about when you're learning communication. Seriously, the two master propagandists.
It's like taking a public speaking course, and it's all
from
about
Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, it's all about studying Muhammad Ali. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But seriously, yeah, exactly. So they learn this shit, and they've got this singular mindset. And there is definitely an information cascade of some sort where, you know, there seems to be like a hierarchy in their community. You know, you seem to have people like Leigh Alexander who have, I don't know, like manipulated the situation or, you know, got the right kind of connections. So if you look at it, like Leigh Alexander says something, and everyone else falls into line. You know, that's why she's on Twitter going, "I'll destroy your career." You know, that person thought they were going to get into gaming, not now. And Leigh Alexander thinks that she has the power to just end someone's career. And it's like, wow, that's crazy. You know? Yeah. But there is definitely.
Well, I was going to talk about this. I mentioned it a little bit before while we were kind of warming up to go on air or whatever. But I was originally I was originally a political science major. And,
before you get into it, I'm getting a bit of echo on your side. Can you turn your speakers down a little bit, please?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. But I was originally a political science major, and wound up going to a journalism school out here, and so I'm acquainted with what, like, you would be shocked at how, I guess inelegant is a word that I would use, the act of being educated as a journalist. And I wasn't even trying to be a journalist, I was trying to be a broadcaster. I was going for broadcasting, I wanted to get into radio. Yeah. But quickly my entire course load devolved into me. It became the Razorfist versus the Professor debate hour. And it was every single, like all but one professor was just my mortal enemy. And and it was entirely because there were literal occasions where I would be writing, because even though it was for broadcasting, you had to run the whole gamut. And this is a very respected journalism school, I want to say. It's one of the top ones in the country. And given where I live, I'm sure everyone can guess which one it is. But I wound up leaving it ultimately because I couldn't take it anymore. There were literal occasions where you would be writing and doing an article because you have to do the whole course load anyways, even though you just want to do broadcasting.
Yeah.
And I'd hand them an article, and I would try and be Mr. fucking Spock, right? I was T'Pol from Enterprise. I was trying to be Vulcan about it and be as unbiased as possible because my thought is, okay, when you're on the radio, people want a little bit of salt and pepper. They want a little seasoning. But when you're writing something, you want to try and be objective if possible.
Fucking be honest. Jesus.
Yeah. So I was trying to be matter of fact about it, a little bit of levity in there, but nothing biased. And I literally had a professor sit there and looking at my paper and say to me, no, you have to understand, it might need a little bit of a slant. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you can't slant. So I give her another draft of it, and I slant towards my political perspective, which has always politically been a little bit right of center. And by a little bit, I mean like right of right. And so, like, I hand her this article, and she goes, no, you have to understand, if you're going to slant, you have to slant to the left. Literally said this to my face.
You have to slant to the left. I mean,
point
Jesus.
blank. And I'm like, okay, I see how this is. And it wasn't but like a month and a half where I was like, okay, that's the last semester I do this. I'm going to go somewhere else.
That's... Wow.
I mean, by the way, that is conventional journalism. That's not even gaming journalism. Gaming journalists, in a lot of cases, don't even have journalism experience or degrees or education of any kind. I'm probably more educated in actual journalism in a traditional sense than most people that are involved in gaming journalism, because a lot of them just come from gaming, or they have creative writing degrees, or what. If you interview any of these guys, they'll usually confirm this. There's not a lot of actual journalism experience in most of these writers.
Well,
so imagine if it's that bad in the actual disciplined journalism field. Imagine how utterly batshit it is in gaming journalism, which plays it much more loose.
I know that Leigh Alexander and David Gallant have acting degrees. So what the fuck are you doing in journalism if you've got an acting degree? What? Right? You know? So I've got no. Do you know what annoys me the most about all of this though? I really. You just look at like Reuters' sort of list of ethical, their ethics policy, and it's just common fucking sense. It's common sense. If you want to accurately represent a situation, then you would have to do all of these things, and anyone with a bit of fucking common sense should look at that and go, well, of course I have to do these things. And then you've got Stephen Totilo on Total Biscuit's feed saying shit like, oh, well, we try to mix subjectivity with objectivity. And it's like, well, then you're not doing anything objective, are you? You know, you're just telling a tale that you want to tell. You know, and the truth is just not part of the issue. It's just not part of the issue.
It's not even a factor. And that was what I mostly learned, was it was a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. It was a lot of, here's your style points, which, I mean, god damn, even if you don't like my style, take a look at me for 5 seconds. I got style coming out the wazoo. Like, it's me having a style is not the issue. I was trying to learn how to be an actual fucking journalist. I didn't even want to be a journalist. That's the worst part. I didn't want to be a journalist, and I was taking it more seriously than the fucking professor, who just wanted me to have pizzazz, whatever the fuck that is.
Yes, slant. You know, so, I tell you what, the more I learn about the shit coming out of universities these days, the more I'm just. Wow.
That's
absolutely. The whole thing needs to be burned to the ground. That's where it comes
from. That's where the SJW thing comes from. I mean, you just have to understand, like, when you look at the statistics for where professors fall down on the political and socio-political spectrum, it's like, oh, that's where it comes from. Like, that's where all the problems are coming from.
The problem is
the entitlement.
They're literally teaching them to be activists.
Syndrome.
Oh, well, that's an interesting thing. I had a bunch of bullet points in my head of things to discuss with you, actually, because I like being able to talk to someone who I know can keep up with all this stuff. One of the things, now, I think that the entitlement special snowflake bullshit is probably a consequence of sort of the millennials, because just being the millennials being the millennials. Because I mean, when I was a kid, and I don't know about you, but you know, you weren't treated like a special snowflake. You had a fail state. You know, there weren't participation ribbons. You know, you went to your sports day, and if you lost, then you fucking lost. You know, someone else won, you lost, you fucking loser. You know, and yet these days, you know,
still a little bit. I mean, I remember growing up. I mostly grew up in the '90s, but it's like even then, the '90s were pretty fucking politically correct. I mean, all this shit kind of happened in all the shit we're talking about kind of started in the late '80s, early '90s, and really started to pick up steam.
It did, but at least where I was, it was all very much sort of. I mean, you know, where I was, it wasn't really. None of this really happened. You know, it was none of this fucking everyone gets ribbon for trying. You know, and it was always, you know, okay, you enter, you try your hardest, and if you lose, then you lose. If you win, then you win. You know, it wasn't. I mean, at least in England, it wasn't. You know, you've got to protect everyone's feelings because, God forbid, someone not feel brilliant about something all the time. Yeah. You know, we didn't have that sort of shit over here because, I don't know, we're just a bit more sensible, I guess. And so I'm wondering if this sort of social justice warrior mentality is just a consequence of this sort of millennials growing up feeling entitled to always feel good. You know, because they care so much about each other's feelings, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck about your feelings. Why should I?
Exactly. So I just don't understand. I guess I missed the meeting where happiness was a civil right.
Yeah.
You know, our forefathers in this country, anyways, guaranteed us the right to pursue happiness. They didn't guarantee fucking happiness, and they certainly didn't goddamn legislate it. So it's kind of bullshit that every single time some snowflake gets trodden upon, they try to legislate their problem. I actually did a whole fucking rant on this on my Tumblr page. It was an audio-only rant, which I haven't recorded a follow-up to, but it was about people who feel this morbid compulsion to attempt to legislate every problem they have away.
Oh, shit.
Not every problem can be fixed with a law, guys. Like,
No. I saw the perfect example of this on Twitter yesterday, where someone was arguing with a social justice warrior, and they were saying, look, you know, you can't, the government cannot guarantee that you won't be raped. And the social justice warrior was like, well, I think I'll stick with feminism then. And it was just like, what do you mean? It's like, well, feminism's going to try and make it so that's the case. And it's like, what kind of fucking dystopia do you think we're going to have to enter for that to be the fucking case? Don't get me wrong, I'm not in favor of rape. No one is. That's why we have laws against it. But I am in favor of freedom of action, you know, and sometimes people take wrong actions. Yes, these have got to be minimized and mitigated where possible, but fuck me, man. A future where rape is impossible is a terrifying future, you know?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not saying that the law never has to be changed for any reason. Like, I can understand, I'm sure in Twiddle Your Nutsack, West Virginia, they have a law, like they forgot to outlaw serial murder somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there are places where there are things that are pretty bad that they've forgotten to legislate them away. But some guy stealing your fucking snacks on the playground is not an issue we need to trouble John McCain with. You know what I mean? It's not something we need to petition Congress for redress of.
No, I totally agree. And that was this person's argument. They were basically like, well, you know, they thought they had the right never to be hurt. And it was just like, look, you can't possibly ever expect any government to enforce that right. You can't possibly expect there to be any kind of legislation or... I mean, I don't even know what they're expecting. You know, and they certainly didn't give any kind of...
They're expecting equality in the sense that they are superior.
That's what
they're looking for. I mean,
that brings us nicely onto feminists, in fact, right? This
that's a whole other debate, but
Well, this is the thing that I've wanted to talk about this for a while with anyone really. The feminists and the MRAs, right? If you look at like what feminists and MRAs are asking for, there is a lot of crossover there. You know, the feminists are like, oh, we don't want to be automatically given kids when there's a divorce, and the MRAs are like, well, we want to have kids when we get divorced sometimes. And okay, great. There's a lot of crossover. So why do the feminists and MRAs like each other? You know, you'd think that, you know, you guys could all, like, work together and hold hands and fucking go petition the government. Wouldn't that work? I mean, but I guess that if you're going to be a supremacist movement, then you can't really get on board with your enemies.
Yeah, and that's the core problem, is that feminism, third-wave feminism, has gone unchecked for so goddamn long that we've gotten to the point where we just assume things are true that are, like, there should have been a fucking discussion in there somewhere. Like, when did we decide that if a guy fucks up and misses child support, he goes to prison, but if a woman does the same thing, she doesn't, or you know, vice versa. There's all these.
Whichever,
yeah, like, we don't have debtor's prison in the United States, for example, except in cases of child support. For some bizarre reason.
Wow, that's very traditionalist, isn't it?
Yeah, so if you fall behind on child support and you have a dick, then you're fucked. But if you don't, then you're good. You know, it's absolutely bizarre. So it's hard not to... I mean, I'm not really an MRA, mainly because I'm not familiar with the platform, so I don't feel comfortable saying that I'm an MRA. But I am familiar enough with much of what they say to ascertain that they're not far off at all.
Yeah, they seem... I mean, I'm not an MRA, no matter what the fucking feminists say, and it's not that I disagree with anything that I've seen them say or do. I don't see any reason that what they're asking for is wrong, you know. I'm just not particularly... I'm never going to adopt a gendered identity, you know, like a gendered label, like feminism or, you know, men's rights. I have always considered myself like a secular humanist. So, you know,
I never understood that concept. I never understood that concept anyways. It always irritated me when someone, like, wore their fucking gender. Like, when someone just cloaks themselves in their gender or societal or racial identity to such an extent that it becomes like a character trait. You know what I mean?
Well,
where it becomes
that's their
like
personality, isn't it? You know, I'm a feminist.
Pillar of their humanity. Like, okay, let's have a serious discussion for a moment here about... We've all had the situation where we're sitting in a room, maybe it's the DMV, maybe it's a classroom, and some guy walks in, and I don't want to say he's gay, but the drapes are on fire, right? Full-blown West Village, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like, I understand there are different mannerisms and so forth, but when every other word out of your mouth is, I was, like, sucking dick, and, like, and this is literally happened. Of course, I was in a leather bar at the time, but never mind. But anyway, so... but it's... Like, that whole kind of thing. Like, I don't barge into a room and grab my cock and go, so I was fucking a bitch, and I'm like, fuck it. Like, it just doesn't work like that.
Exactly. You don't need to, for fuck's sake. You know, how is that necessary in fucking polite society? But, you know, I'm English, so we're concerned about that sort of thing.
Right. You're still trying to have a polite society. There's your problem right there.
Well, this is just what we show the colonials. When you actually come over here, there's no pretense.
This is the clash of chemicals we were talking about.
It is. In fact, on that note, I'm gonna be back in a second. I just need to drain the lizard.
Alrighty. And for the record, speaking of clash of chemicals, anyone who watched the Drunken Peasants podcast that I did with the Amazing Atheist, I thought it turned out killer, for the record, but there was a definite chemical calamity going on. Like, I was flying high on 5 Frappuccinos, and 5 minutes into the podcast, TJ turns to me, and he says, dude, I am baked and I'm shit-faced. I'm like, well, here comes a study in contrast, then. Like, this ought to be fun. Let's see here. Actually, I am going to drain my dragon momentarily here. Okay. I am the quickest urinator in history, so I'm going to read some of your questions here, if I can get to the page. There we are. Okay, somebody asked if Deckard is a replicant. Only if Blade Runner is a bad movie is he a replicant. I'm sorry. There is absolutely no reason for Deckard to be a replicant. I've always said he's not. I think, because here's the thing. If Deckard is a replicant, then it's just a movie about a robot who fucked another robot, and there's no character development and no personal conflict of any kind. But
I don't think he's a replicant.
Then it's a movie with a naughty philosophical dilemma. It's a Philip K. Dick novel, if he's a human being. Which, for the record, in the novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, he's a human being. Sorry, I was answering.
Yeah.
Sargon, you're back?
Yeah, I am. No, I totally agree. I don't think he was a replicant either.
Thank you.
I really don't. Like you say, it's not a moral quandary if he is. You know,
it's not. No, in the book, he's and look, I understand Ridley Scott says that he's a replicant, but Ridley Scott, in case you haven't noticed, sometimes makes bad movies, and he's not always correct. He doesn't. Just because he directed the film, he didn't write it, number one. The writer of the film didn't believe that Deckard was a replicant. I mean, director's important, but he's not the be-all, end-all. Hampton says that he's a human being.
I always wonder why the writers of films don't get more credit, because, you know, okay, the director, you know, he's showing us how the film is. I mean, he's showing the film, but, you know, the writer's the one putting the, you know, the emotion and drama and tension into the movie.
Yeah, and if you don't think a good writer and a good script is important, have a gander at Prometheus sometime.
Oh, fuck me. Don't get me started on Prometheus. Oh, fuck me. Just no. So, tell me about The Amazing Atheist.
I said no. I was just mentioning. I thought it went really well. I was just mentioning on the show there was a little bit of a chemical clash going on because I was like soaring on caffeine because I'm a highly caffeinated chap to begin with, and he was like within 5 minutes of the podcast starting is like, dude, I'm baked and I'm totally shit faced. Yeah. Like depressant versus stimulant basically is what that was. But I thought it turned out really well anyway.
Well, yeah, I actually listened to a little bit of it, and it wasn't because I didn't want to. It was just because I was fucking busy all the time. But so yeah, as far as I understand it, basically you were taking the piss out of Neil deGrasse Tyson for being the sort of guy who makes shit up, and it's kind of led to his defense, right?
He falsely quoted a bunch of fucking people, including a little guy called the President of the United fucking States. He misquoted members of Congress. He like pulled quotes out of his ass and stuff. And that's the only reason, for the record, that I don't really like Neil deGrasse Tyson, is that and the kind of cult of personality that he has formed over on the I Fucking Love Science Facebook page. Right? You know, like, I hate that whole phenomenon of...
I do. I'm really not a big fan of the I Fucking Love Science page at all. I mean, I don't follow it or anything because it was just
I mean, because let's be real. A picture of a fucking autumn aurora is not science. It's a picture. Yeah, you're a photography fan. Shut the fuck up.
And they're pretending like they're all fucking big fans of science, and then I'm like, okay, well, explain this to me, and none of them fucking can. And I'm like, okay, brilliant. Yeah. I don't know anything about science, but I don't go around telling everyone how great...
You know what it is? It's the UFC effect. It's the guy who thinks he's tough but isn't tough but watches UFC so he thinks that he can do that shit kind of a situation. Like, people who just see some factoid meme on the I Fucking Love Science Facebook page automatically think they're Bill fucking Nye.
Exactly. They think it makes them fucking clever. Yeah?
Basically, yeah. It's being smart without all that pesky intelligence.
Yeah, all the inconvenient hard work that comes along with it. You know?
Yeah, all those degrees and actually accruing knowledge as a normal human being would do, and again, polite society.
So he did a video response to you or something, didn't he?
He did. Well, no, he didn't. What he did is he was making a video responding to tweets that were making fun of Neil deGrasse Tyson over the comments that he made about Christmas Day. He put out a tweet, and I didn't find it offensive at all, and that wasn't the reason I did my tweet, as I explained later. But basically, Neil deGrasse Tyson had made a tweet that said something effective. On Christmas Day, someone was born who changed the course of the world. Happy birthday, Sir Isaac Newton. And like, it got some religious types dander up. I don't know. Even if I was religious, I wouldn't find it offensive. Number one, because Jesus wasn't actually born on December 21st.
Yeah, I don't
25th, rather. But
I don't think I've ever actually heard anyone actively argue that he was. I mean, he obviously wasn't. I mean, shepherds watch their flock by night. What, in the middle of fucking winter? I don't think they fucking do. You know, I really don't think they fucking do. I think everyone's hunkered down trying to keep warm, you dipshits.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it gets cold in Jerusalem or in Bethlehem.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, it fucking does.
I'm pretty sure it just gets cold everywhere in winter. I'm pretty sure that's how that works.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I saw. Basically, all that happened was I made this tweet making fun of Neil deGrasse Tyson, not because of his tweet, because I didn't even read it. I just saw that Neil deGrasse Tyson was trending on Twitter, and I was not about to miss an opportunity to take the piss out of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Because I believe at every available opportunity, a fraud should be made fun of.
Fire away, man.
I put out a tweet saying something effective like, you know that obnoxious flag-waving atheist friend who just has no personality trait aside from being atheist? Yeah, throw in a cheesy mustache, that's Neil deGrasse Tyson, or something to that effect. And it got picked up by some website, I guess. Somebody must have just checked Neil deGrasse Tyson on Twitter, because I didn't even use the hashtag. And they posted it on their website, an amazing atheist, not knowing who the fuck I am, because I'm not that popular. Mm-hmm. And he just plucked these tweets off of this website and reacted to them. And I don't think he bargained on someone like having a video channel and the ability to speak in front of a camera being on the other end of one of those tweets. So he took me like wildly out of context. He insinuated that I'm Christian. He insinuated that I was a creationist, like right-wing windbag.
Look at your fucking icon on this. Jesus, sorry, icon.
Yeah, I'm like, there's an icon fucking 5 centimeters to the left of that tweet. You realize that? And I'm wearing a goat's head Bathory shirt. You know, the goat, after all, being the emblem of Christianity.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so I basically just, it was hilarious. I
saw the video, yeah.
It wouldn't have been as angry of a rant if I had been able to record it right away, because I was pissed, but I wasn't that pissed. It compounded with interest because he put the video up on New Year's Day. And so my roommate is shit-faced on the other side of the house, and he's sleeping one off, and he's got some scuzzbag chick that he brought back from a party with him. So I can't start recording without waking up everybody in the house. So I'm like... So for 7 hours, I'm waiting for them to clear out of the house. And I'm fuming. Like, I had shit to do, and I was so mad. I'm literally pacing back and forth, and I swear to God, the moment I heard the garage door slam, I turn on the camera, and I let fly like Mussolini from the balcony, in the immortal words of George Costanza. And I just went off. I didn't even use an outline. I normally use an outline. I didn't need it because I had been like grumbling to myself.
Yeah.
I was Razorfist. He turned me into Joe Pesci from Home Alone. That's what happened.
And I watched the video. I found it very entertaining. And the thing is, I like The Amazing Atheist.
To a degree, I do too. That's
no problem with him. You know.
I'm a fan of The Amazing Atheist, not because I necessarily agree with him on everything, because I don't. But,
no, of course.
but I think he's fantastic at public speaking, and he's incredibly interesting to talk to. He has great flow. He uses some jump cuts, but he doesn't have to. You can tell. He just knows what he's doing, and I respect that.
Yeah, he's a professional.
There aren't a lot of people on YouTube who can actually turn on a camera and compel people without a script. And
I'm certainly not one of those people.
So I was a huge fan of his before, but then he comes after me, and I'm like, fucking gloves are off, bitch.
But then he has you on his podcast, right? So, I mean, I was quite impressed, fucking fair play to him.
He was a great guy about it. He admitted he apologized for taking me out of context. And we like had an amicable exchange or whatever, and then we had the podcast together, and he clearly was about to disagree with me on a number of issues, but bit his tongue, and likewise, I would bit my tongue a number of times as well when he said things that I didn't agree with, but there's mutual respect there, and I would be on their podcast anytime. I think I would argue more, though, just because I think it would be more fun to listen to.
Yeah, I think it would too. Yeah, that's really cool though, because if you just think like it could have gone so completely the other way if either of you were just slightly more ideologically inclined toward any kind of ideology. If you were a Christian or if he was like a fucking feminist or something, it would have just been the most different fucking story. But instead, it's the story of two fucking grown men acting like adults, and it's still entertaining.
Yeah, instead of throwing insults at each other, we decided to throw them at a bunch of shitty YouTube videos together on his podcast, basically.
Exactly. That's awesome. That's really cool. But what other things did you want to talk about? There were a bunch of other things, weren't there?
You were talking about the Putin thing.
Oh yeah, that was my favorite. I swear to God, that's probably my favorite story this year so far. If people aren't aware, you can Google this. I'll just get the headline up from Fox News, which is definitely one of my favorite news sources these days. Reports suggest Putin has Asperger's syndrome. What's the diagnosis? A newly revealed study from a Pentagon think tank theorizes that Russian President Vladimir Putin has Asperger's syndrome.
I thought some of those 4chan posts had a Russian accent. I thought so.
I just love it, as if there was ever like, okay, we want you to do a study on Vladimir Putin and come back and, well, actually he's a geopolitical mastermind who bested us in Syria, in Crimea, and when it came to the NSA and Edward Snowden. So in fact, he might be better than we are. No, obviously the answer is he's got fucking Asperger's.
Well, okay. You might be able to make the argument on Edward Snowden. I've always had a problem with the Edward Snowden thing, mainly because I find it hard to believe a guy is standing for freedom of speech when he allies himself with a former head of the fucking KGB who disappears journalists like it's going out of style.
Hang on. What was he the head of the KGB?
So I mean,
was he the head of the KGB?
I'm sorry, what?
Was Putin the head of the KGB?
He was the former head of the KGB. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, right, what you've got. I think the important thing to understand is that I'm sure that Putin doesn't endorse or like. I'm sure it's not anything to do with the morality of the situation. I think
absolutely no.
It's a political win.
Yeah, I think Putin was using him. I mean, guy, it's all but confirmed now. You heard about that Russian spy that was giving him blowjobs basically in exchange for information, right?
No, I didn't.
They sicked like a supermodel turned Russian super spy on him. This sounds like a fucking plot of an Austin Powers film, but I swear to God, it's real. This super spy chick was plying Edward Snowden for information. And Putin had sicked her on him, basically. So it's like a bizarre situation. But yeah, basically,
Edward Snowden.
It's just, I think Edward Snowden kind of abandoned the high ground on that. If he was going to stand on principle, I mean, you can stand for principle and go to prison and be put to death and still stand on principle. I mean, it's if he was that much of an idealist, I don't know.
I don't blame him for going anywhere that was going to keep him alive.
To be fair, I've never been faced with that decision either. But
exactly.
It does take a bit of the shine off for me.
I would agree, and technically you're right. But at the end of the day, I think that what he did was more than enough, showing everyone that there is, here's the evidence that the NSA is doing all this stuff. That was worth so much more than anything else he could have done, and I don't blame him for going somewhere that he wasn't going to get fucking assassinated.
And in my humble opinion, nobody got nearly pissed enough about the NSA thing as they should.
No, they fucking didn't.
I mean, there were so many scandals, and I think Obama was almost saved by the fact that there were like 9 scandals running concurrently in his administration. So like the NSA thing came along, and it was like just the cherry on top.
No,
it was
this is exactly like, something.
Okay, he's actively spying on politicians and foreign dignitaries and U.S. citizens and reading emails and what the fuck? This is not minor, guys.
No, any one of these things should have been an impeachable offense, shouldn't they?
They're still talking about Benghazi, for Christ's sake, and they have long since forgotten the NSA spying scandal. Are you out of your fucking
mind?
It's
insane. It's fucking insane. But this is the point. There was no way that this Pentagon think tank was going to come back and go, well, Putin has got us over a barrel several times and made us look like fucking idiots, because he has. There's no getting around it. John Kerry put his fucking foot in his mouth. What can we do to stop you bombing Syria? Oh, well, they'd have to give up their chemical weapons, and Putin's just like fucking sold. And I bet he got back to the fucking Democratic Party headquarters, and they were just like, what did you fucking say that for? What did you fucking say that for? Syria is like the last Russian ally other than Iran in the Middle East. Now,
step back for a moment. What does this look like? Is this not like the kid on the playground who gets punched in the face and his only recourse now, because he knows he can't kick their ass, is say, duty head? Like, basically...
Pretty much. That's exactly what it is.
Basically, they're calling Vladimir Putin a spurg lord. Like,
that's exactly it. It's literally that. It's got to the point where, as well, I mean, he's probably got autism. So, that makes you look even worse, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because this guy's fucking owns your asses. Fucking idiots.
And let's be honest here. Putin makes it pretty easy. Like there are times when I think Putin is a monocle and a moon laser away from being a Bond villain.
Oh, he absolutely is. That's probably what I love most about Putin. The fact he's riding around a fucking horse bare-chested and shooting tigers and shit. And it's like, yeah, brilliant. That's just so fucking ridiculous,
And seriously, if Russia loses any more journalists, they're going to have to start calling themselves the escapist.
Well, tell me about
Putin is he'll do whatever he wants.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Of course he will. Jesus Christ. Honestly, Putin, for all his faults, he is a political genius. He's fucking ran circles around everyone. Yeah. But tell me about the journalists. I didn't know about Russian journalists going missing.
Oh God, there have been. Just look up a list of Russian journalists killed in the last, basically under the Putin regime. There was a really prominent one. There's a really prominent case of an older lady who was a journalist in Russia who was investigating corruption during Putin's re-election, and some of his ties to big business as well, because like Russia's basically an oligarchy.
And well, it was an oligarchy. It was very definitely an oligarchy. I mean, it probably still is, but
it still is, absolutely. And so anyway, she was reporting on this, and then some full-blown hitman in a ski mask shows up at her apartment and blows her fucking brains out.
Holy shit.
And it's like, and this is not like an isolated case. Just look it up. There's actually a Wikipedia article. Not that that's an irrefutable source, but I mean, I was watching a whole Frontline. They had a whole series on PBS Frontline about it, just talking about the various stories of journalists that, one day they're investigating corruption in the Putin regime, and one day they're floating in the fucking river, and it's like, boy, that's interesting timing. At least Stalin had the good taste to do something truly exotic with them, like bury him in the foundation of a state building or something. So hacky. If you're gonna kill someone, don't be a hack about it.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I just want to say though that Putin isn't loved by the oligarchs. He came down on them hard when he first came into power. I mean, if I recall correctly, he appropriated a bunch of businesses, which is why he's worth so much money. Putin's worth something like 70 billion.
Well, if you really look at it, if you really break it down, he's made himself an oligarch.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing, actually, right? Because what's really interesting is that, okay, great, Putin is worth billions. Now, what are you going to bribe him with?
Yeah,
that's the question. Because there we are. Because now that puts him completely different. Say Obama, who's completely open to fucking bribery. You know, almost all Western politicians are just corporate men at this point, you know? So it's one of those, it's a very interesting thing, and I'm not saying that anyone's in the right here. I can't remember the last politician I thought was actually a decent fellow. So, you know, they're all scum cut from the same scummy cloth.
Yeah,
so,
well, I think what you're basically saying is, with Putin, it's kind of a devil you know situation.
Yeah.
Because you know that he's a Ninja Turtles villain. Like, you know that he's just batshit fucking insane in a lot of ways. You expect him to be a prick, and that predictability makes him a less frightening alternative than a completely unknown quantity who completely waffles under any political pressure, like Barack Obama or somebody else, or like the British Prime Minister.
I totally agree. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, the thing about Putin, right, is there is a certain amount of integrity to what he does. He can't be bought out, you know. He is on a mission to reinstate the glory of Russia. It's self-evident from what he does in office. He is trying to make Russia a great power again. Yeah. That's not what any of the prime ministers or presidents of Europe and the West are doing. You know?
Oh yeah, quite the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. They seem to be able to fucking, you know, loot their countries for all they're worth, line their pockets, and retire off to some fucking island somewhere. So, you know,
yeah, it's like he's kind of the world's only imperialist right now, in a way.
Yeah, he's basically, yeah, and like the only real patriot or something. You know what I mean? It's just like, so there's part of me that, you know, I don't hate Putin. I don't have any illusions about him. He's not a nice guy, but I don't hate him. Yeah, that was But yeah, The Escapist. All those layoffs at The Escapist. Let's get
oh my goodness. Man, and they're not alone, dude. Game Trailers recently announced a bunch of layoffs as well, and they were
joystick closing.
Yeah, and then that's after IGN was sold. Joystick went out of business 2 weeks ago. A year before that, GameSpy went out of business. 1UP, of course, has been dead in the water for quite a while. There's just, man,
it's been a fucking bloodbath.
I mean, let's be real. Like, gaming journalism was pretty fucking oversaturated. I think it's fair to say there was a lot of websites, and there did not need to. Like, I remember. Have you ever played Silent Hill 3?
I have not played any of the Silent Hills, actually.
Okay, if you play Silent Hill 3, there's like a cheat code mode. Like, you just type in a cheat code. And I was looking up online all these cheat codes because you get like different outfits for your character, and there's some pretty bitchin' ones actually that I prefer to the main character's normal default skin or whatever, because I'm perpetuating the patriarchy and I'm dressing her up because she's a female and so forth.
You look like a patriarch, to be fair.
And it's true. It's true. I think it's the throne that gives it away. But anyways, it's interesting though because these codes, like if you go through, there's all these different, there's shitloads of them. And like at least 20 of them are nothing but different shirts that have logos from major video game websites on them. Like there's a GameSpy shirt, and there's an IGN shirt, and there's a joystick, and there's, you know, all these whatever these fucking websites are. And it really goes to show, like, there were so many. Like, I couldn't even get through them all.
Wow. Yeah.
And I mean, now in 2015, like, if I list off video game websites off the top of my head, at least ones that are even vaguely relevant, that list has been pared down to, like, maybe 10. Like, and that's just off the top of my head, mind you. But still, it seems like there were a lot more gaming websites 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a real bloodbath, especially recently. And do you know what? I felt bad for Greg Tito getting sacked from The Escapist. I really did, because I mean, the Escapist, he was part of Game Journal Pros, so that's an ethical problem that I have with him. But
let me wipe these crocodile tears away.
No. But the thing is, when Gamergate exploded and everyone was getting the doors kicked in and their shit pulled into the street to be examined by the mob, the Escapists were the first to respond and actually create an ethics policy.
Yeah.
And actually, get their shit in order and say, you know what, you've got some fucking good points here. And Tito allowed conversation of Gamergate on his forums when Ben Cachero is like, oh, you've got to stop that, on the Game Journal Pros list. So
yeah,
I really felt bad for Tito because he didn't deserve it.
A lot of people... I'm sorry, continue.
I didn't think he deserved it more than other people,
Yeah. It was a weird situation, too, because I remember around that time, it wasn't just them. It wasn't Angry Joe for a while. There was banning any Gamergate discussion on his forums.
No, that's not true. I spoke to the moderator, or one of the super moderators called Damian Rain. He's a really, really, really nice guy, and he's found himself more and more pro Gamergate the more he learns. And no, for like 3 months they had a Gamergate thread that went on for thousands and thousands and thousands of posts. And eventually, after 3 months, they were like, look, this isn't really the place or the time, you don't really need it here, and so we're just going to close it and carry on talking about video games. And then people got their shit in the knickers in a twist, and it's like, okay, well, to be fair, it's a private community. They don't have to, what do you want,
Yeah, I don't know, but all I'm saying is, like, they weren't alone. Like, Escapist... I know there were a number of websites that were not allowed. Well, fuck. I mean, 8chan got created because of fucking refusal to discuss this issue.
No. 8chan existed before. It
really got. You know what I mean? There was the big exodus from 4chan.
Yeah, there was. After I can't believe Moot sold out from 4chan. I mean, of all the fucking, of all the people.
I mean, clearly there was a bit of an attempt to silence dissent, which I think only compounded the anger with interest.
Absolutely.
It's the last thing in the world you want to fucking do.
That was the thing. I think everyone's getting a bit of echo through your things again.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right. That was the thing. I recently watched Stephen Totillo's thing with Total Biscuit, and Total Biscuit created a thread on Reddit that had something like 35,000 comments, and that was just taken off. And obviously, there was a lot of that going on, and so motherfucker, people got pissed off with that, and I don't blame them. I really don't blame them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like Stephen Totillo's been like the biggest joke in the entire situation. I mean, the way that he dealt with the Nathan Grayson situation was an utter fucking farce. Just an utter goddamn farce. I mean, he admitted it in his own tweet, and this was always my issue with the Nathan Grayson thing. Whether or not Chloe Segal and the whole timeline matched up or whatever, to me that was utterly secondary. Absolutely nothing mattered more than the fact that the moment they started a relationship, Nathan Grayson should have volunteered the information that he was starting it. Not because he was about to write an article. He shouldn't have waited until that point. He should have told him the moment it happened. Because, all right, you're not about to write an article. Who's to say that you're not eventually going to be asked to? You know what I mean?
It's not like he didn't promote her game in his other writing anyway, on Kotaku. I know it was Rock, Paper, Shotgun, sorry. He'd already promoted her fucking game, calling it a Twine darling and all this sort of bullshit.
Yeah. But even putting that aside, in his own, like, let's say the relationship didn't ever occur, like, during that time frame. It doesn't matter. Like fucking Stephen Totillo in his initial tweet where he defended Nathan Grayson and said, I've been assured that it's not a problem and the timelines don't match up and so forth. Like, in his tweet, he outright admits that he had to confront Nathan Grayson with the information. Nathan Grayson didn't just walk up to him even after the shitstorm started and say, "Hey dude, here's what's going on." Like, he had to twist his fucking arm to get him to even talk about it. And it's like,
he didn't recuse himself. That's a violation of journalistic integrity. Why
Absolutely.
anything. And this is what's baffled me about this whole fucking thing. Why didn't Attila just go, sorry, Nathan, I'm going to have to fire you. Sorry, you didn't recuse yourself. Now I've got a huge fucking shitstorm on my back, and, the right thing to do would be to fire you for this impropriety. Instead, he fucking protects him, and they all fucking close ranks to protect them, and it's just like, why? Why? It's got to be ideological. It can't be fucking... well, fuck knows.
Well, look, with Kotaku, they're owned by Gawker, who repeatedly attempts to stand on principle with things like, oh, you never should have fucking invaded Zoe Quinn's privacy because everyone's entitled to privacy, which I agree, everyone is entitled to privacy. I wish we could have found out about the story without Zoe Quinn's privacy being violated. I do, even though she clearly did some shit that she shouldn't have. It's not really any of our business. I wish there had been a way for us to find out about this without knowing any of her fucking dirty laundry. But the Gawker
don't care about Zoe Quinn.
Yeah, but the Gawker network standing on principle is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this not the same website that has a video right now, a stolen, illegally filmed video right now on their website of Hulk Hogan laying the pipe to another man's wife? Is this not the same fucking website?
Yep. Who was it? Was it
If it seems like Gawker are walking on air, it's just because they're trying to stand on principle.
Oh yeah, and the latest thing from Gawker was Coca-Cola set up that fucking tweet bot, didn't they? Saying you send us send us a tweet and we'll tweet it, out as a picture using the words that you sent. And so they started tweeting them verses from Mein Kampf. And it's just like, don't get me wrong, that's funny, but it's not fucking good.
The unbridled class of it all.
Yeah, exactly. You fucking, just stay classy, Gawker. You know what I mean? But give them the credit. It is funny.
Yeah. Well, hey, it is funny, but here's the thing: they've jumped down and just grabbed the epiglottis of so many people for doing far less because it was politically incorrect.
Yeah.
That's where people have an issue with it because it's fucking hypocrisy. Many goddamn times they have absolutely called people on the carpet for one thing. I mean, fuck, they have a journalist on Kotaku whose entire occupation appears to be pissing and whining about how women are treated in games. Basically, that's Patricia Hernandez's cause célèbre, right?
Oh,
how many people has she called on the carpet for similar fucking behavior? It just doesn't make any sense.
I tell you, it seems that almost every one of these sites has got a hyper-feminist. I was going to call him a journalist then, but I'll call him a blogger. Where they just talk about. I mean, Samantha Allen was another one. Samantha, I hate men, Allen. It's like, she literally she's written some post where she's like, I'm a man hater, not one of those cute fuzzy throw rocks at boys man haters. And it's just like, well, why? Why would anyone employ this person? You could replace man with anything and it wouldn't be acceptable. I'm a black hater. I'm a Jew hater. This person sounds like a fucking fruitcake. Why are you giving her a job? And
I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the journalistic affirmative action sort of thing, where they kind of have to, like I said, it's the McDonald's commercial effect. They have to have one of every color. You know what I mean? And so
absolutely.
They kind of pluck one from here and pluck one from there. I remember people being pissed about the transgender. I don't know why, about the transgender person who was employed at, was it GameSpot or something? And I remember people giving him shit for a while. And I do agree, it seemed like a bit of affirmative action had taken place because the person just wasn't that good. But it's like, how many gaming journalists are just utter shit, regardless of whether or not their genitals have been cut on?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's just the bullshit that comes out of them.
It doesn't. I would rather have people call them on the carpet for just being utter horseshit at their job.
Yeah, I mean, I've just Googled Patricia Hernandez's list on Kotaku, right? These are the headlines that Patricia Hernandez from her articles. The internet reacts to a possible Zelda Netflix series. Oh, fucking brilliant, Patricia. That's excellent.
Dude, that's a step up from the fucking Japanese panty dispensary articles. Like, anything that happens in Japan, snail crosses street in Hokkaido, it's like, great, fantastic.
That's true. That's true. I mean, and so remember Fallout's crazy superheroes? Fucking hell, Patricia. Is this a Facebook update or something?
Yeah, that really is kind of Kotaku's thing. It's not even so much a journalistic endeavor, although, to be fair, they call themselves like a news blog. They don't really refer to themselves as a news website.
They do, which is good, because they're fucking not.
But at the same time, I mean, how does it read? Scroll through Kotaku for a little while. How does it read? It reads like some fucking geek's Facebook wall. That's what it
really does. It's just pathetic. I mean, none of this is important. I can't understand why people give her money to write this shit. I am at a loss. And Nathan,
seriously, guys, if anyone out there watching this, if you just want a good laugh, just go to Kotaku, click on Patricia Hernandez's name, or type in her name, and just look up these. Seriously, read up on that flat zero encephalogram sometime. Like, I didn't even realize they made numbers that small until I looked up Kotaku's recent site statistics. That is.
I've just got to Google something.
Sargon's Googling. Shit's about to get real.
Yeah, no, I really am. I think this was where was it? There was yeah, there we go. Amanda Marcotte. Now, Amanda Marcotte is a very interesting person. She's good friends with Anit Sarkeesian.
Yeah.
And I've seen allegations that she is connected to the people who write Common Core as well. I don't know anything about that, though, so I'm not going to go into it. But she writes for The Guardian, for Salon, for various Slate, all the fucking extreme left feminist bullshit rags, right? And there's this article on Raw Story where she writes, the headline is just the most perfect. I don't even know how to describe it. It's where the social justice warriors detach themselves from reality and just...
Oh, so you mean Tumblr. Right.
Effectively. I mean, the headline is, Gamergate is an attack on ethical journalism. Can you imagine what she must have been thinking to think that the games journalists that are going on at the moment are ethical and Gamergate is attacking them for being ethical? I mean, what must she think that ethics means? I was just unfucking believable. I was just like, right, okay, you just fucking stop and go.
That is a classic attention grabbing headline though too. That's just so fucking.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to take another piss, so I will be back in a minute. Look, it's the problem when I start drinking. I'm not a big drinker, so normally I don't drink. And I've got a lot of excuses.
Either Sargon's been drinking a lot, or he's got the diabetes.
I've been drinking back in the day.
All right, I'm gonna read some of your comments or read through some of your shit here, guys. So bear with me. I know this is on a delay, so I might not get the comments in time for him to have returned. But if you have any comments, go ahead and fire them at me, and I'll try and answer them in as cogent a fashion as humanly possible. Let's see here. God, you folks don't ask many questions here. Interesting. Wow, hold on a second. I didn't realize Karen Strahan had done a debate with the Young Turks. That is fucking... I've been watching Girl Writes What for a couple of years now. I think she's absolutely fantastic, although she's not nearly as active on her channel these days as she should be. But I am gonna trust me. The moment this live stream ends, I'm gonna be there with bells on. I'm gonna look that interview up this moment because I have no doubt that, assuming they didn't completely railroad her with like shitty moderation or something, I imagine they tried because it is the Young Turks. But assuming that, I gotta believe it's eminently fucking watchable. Razor, what's your favorite band? That would be Bathory, hands down. Not a difficult question to answer at all. Let's see here. I've actually, the person linking to the ADL.org essay, I actually already read that. Did not surprise me at all. For those of you who weren't here for the beginning of the stream, I already talked a little bit about how I had a little experience in journalism school. So that kind of curriculum doesn't exactly surprise me at all. I literally had a professor point blank tell me that if I was going to slant my reports, that I should slant them from a left-wing perspective. Otherwise, they weren't valid. So, good times. Let's see here. Are there any relatively new bands that you like? Yeah, I dig. I tend to like the older style of heavy metal, but there's a lot of new bands that I like. There's a great band that I've been listening to lately from their first album came out about a year ago called The Oath. And they're like a doom metal band with a really good, actually with a pop singer from Sweden as their lead singer. She's actually really good, but they're kind of like a Black Sabbath Danzig, kind of like 70s doom metal kind of band, and they're pretty much brand new. They broke up about 5 seconds after they formed, but they're really good. And then they went off and formed a new band called Lucifer that basically just sounds like bad Black Sabbath, but The Oath is good shit. So, Razor, are you a midget? Absolutely fucking not. I'm 6 feet tall. So. Listen and believe where they want guilty till proven innocent. I don't know. You know, that issue, first off, isn't that just the way the British justice system operates under ideal circumstances? There are actually a lot of justice systems where you're guilty until proven innocent. But, yeah, not a big fan of it, obviously, over here in America land. Who do I hate more, Jim Sterling or Yonsei? I don't hate either of them. I just don't like either of their fucking shows. And I think Jim Sterling should be taken to task for some of the fucking censorship. And I think Gamergate should be more up in arms about some of the shit that he's pulled. But Yahtzee, I mean, I just don't think he's that good. Best metal album ever is The Return by Bathory. Now, I don't know. Number one all time? I don't know. Like fucking... I really like, believe it or not, he's not generally regarded as a heavy metal artist, even though he's important to the genre, but Alice Cooper I'm a huge fan of, and I really like the Raise Your Fist and Yell album, which is actually where I get my name from. Because at the end of that song, he's like repeating the phrase "raise your fist" a bunch of times, and then he like kind of slurs his words, and it just sounded like Razorfist at a certain point, and that's where I got my fucking name from. Is the Pretty Reckless the most amazing metal band you've ever heard, or just pretty amazing? I don't know. I've honestly never heard them, but Taylor Momsen's about 7 feet tall, so that's a thing. And I don't like Lordy. They're like a poor man's Gwar. I don't know. Let's see here. Name something positive about third wave feminism. This ought to be a protracted silence. No, look. I'll say one thing that third wave feminism has going for it that other genres of feminism didn't. The means of dissemination of their message, even though the message is utterly caustic and repulsive, I think they're much better about getting the word out about their message than first and second wave were. Because, I mean, back in the day, they pretty much had to march around in order, and a lot of that is just purely technological and so forth. You can't really fault first and second wave feminism for that, but it is at the end of the day kind of a it's an innovation of third wave feminism. So I can pull something out of my ass that's positive about anybody, including Yahtzee, believe it or not. How badly would I wreck Sargon's... I don't know. He seems to urinate a lot. I'm thinking he has the diabetes, so I'm not sure. Not sure he would be a reliable companion from a health standpoint. Internet Aristocrat, has he come back yet? I don't know. I checked out a few of his videos. I'm not as locked in, like, up front. I'm not as locked in, and I'm not pretending to be, into the whole Gamergate thing, certainly as people like Sargon and the Internet Aristocrat are. But I definitely did watch a number of his videos, and I thought they were pretty fucking informative. Worst Bathory album is Octagon. That ain't even a fucking question. Not even a goddamn question. Would I debate Charlie Brooker? Sure. It's sad because I think Charlie Brooker's pretty funny. He's like the British Dennis Miller. And as anyone who watches my show for 5 adjacent seconds can confirm, I'm a huge Dennis Miller fan. What do I think of Angry Joe's thoughts on Gamergate? Okay, Sargon's probably going to differ with me on this. He's remained neutral on the issue. And for the record, I just want to say this disclaimer time. I don't have a problem with Angry Joe. I've actually had a couple interactions with him, and he was a perfectly cool dude, and I think he's fine. Whatever. But my suspicion is that Angry Joe is anti-Gamergate. That would be my... if I had to take a stab in the dark. Because I think the only reason that him remaining silent on the issue makes... the only way that it makes sense is if he's anti-Gamergate. The only way he has something to lose is if he comes out in support of it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that... like, if he... okay. I can't even talk necessarily about why I think he's anti-Gamergate, mainly because it stems from people in his personal life. I want to keep this vague, because he isn't entitled to a private life, and I hate when people bring private shit up about people. But basically, my suspicion would be because of some of the people in his private life and how they air politically, and more importantly, the fact that they don't allow people in their lives that have a contrary-wise political opinion, I would suspect that he is of one mind with them on this issue, and that because I don't believe they would allow him in their life if he wasn't. So that's my opinion. I'm sorry for being terribly vague, but I have to be, because I really don't want to violate the guy's privacy at all.
Who's that?
So you can think that's utter bullshit if you want to, but that's just my opinion.
Sorry, who? What?
Somebody asked me about Angry Joe and how I think he falls on the Gamergate issue, and my suspicion, as I just mentioned, I think he's anti-Gamergate.
Yeah, I think that I think he's probably got a lot of personal people in his personal life who give him a lot of shit.
Yeah, and that was exactly what I said. I think I think there are certain people that I know for a fact would not allow him to be a friend or even an acquaintance with them if he were not of one mind with them on the Gamergate issue. And not only that, like, those people are not only anti-Gamergate but vehemently so.
Not only that, like the flack he's going to catch when he goes to various video game shows, you know, like E3 and whatnot. And
yeah, because it's like, look, if he's pro-Gamergate, it's almost like not an issue for him to come out and say it, because so much of his audience is pro-Gamergate anyways. The only way that it makes sense for him to remain quote-unquote neutral and to not say something on the subject is if he's anti-Gamergate. Maybe that'll change. Maybe he'll come out as pro-Gamergate. I would suspect if he does, it will be because his mind has been changed by how extreme the opposite side of the aisle has become. And they have, dude.
Oh, God, yeah.
They've lost their fucking minds. I mean, I've seen so many people who formerly supported an Anita Sarkeesian walking sideways away from the bench. It's
when they start talking about toxic masculinity in school shootings, Jesus Christ. of all the things not to try and talk about, you know. Did you see that on Twitter?
No, what exactly?
Gee. Hang on, let me just get the exact tweet so I can, you know, so I'm not taking that out of context. But yeah, just. So Anit Sarkeesian tweeted, "It's not a coincidence that it's always men and boys committing mass shootings. The pattern is connected to ideas of toxic masculinity in our culture." And it's like, really, it's not a coincidence. It's always blacks, is it, Anita? Not a coincidence. It's always Jews. Or you know, you can't fucking say that. You know, just saying that is fucking wrong.
It's funny too because I believe I was answering a question about Karen Strahan, Girl Writes What earlier.
Yeah.
Who I think is absolutely superb.
Oh, she's savage.
And she actually did a whole video series on school shooting. She actually did a really brilliant video about Anders Breivik, the shooter from Norway.
Really, I didn't see that.
The guy who did that mass shooting in Norway.
Yeah.
Thing up sometime because it was a really fucked up situation. This guy went on the worst mass shooting in Norwegian history, from what I understand.
Oh, gotcha.
And I actually had my girlfriend was in Norway. My ex-girlfriend was in Norway when it happened. So it was really fucked up. Yeah, it was really messed up. She was at school at the time, and I remember she mentioned, like, she dug up a bunch of information because Anders Breivik, that situation was a big deal because Anders Breivik's father is a Norwegian public figure. He's like a politician or something.
Was he?
And he had lost custody of Anders Breivik when Anders Breivik was a child. And there was a psychiatrist.
His mother was mental, wasn't she?
Yeah, the mother was batshit insane, and she had apparently raped Anders Breivik as a child and sexualized him really young.
Yeah.
And it was a really horrible, abusive situation, and he had been molested a number of times, and the father had petitioned the Norwegian court system for custody because he knew that it was going on, and he had tried to become more involved, but the mother kept fighting him in court, and the Norwegian legal system went full on. It defaults basically to the mother in Norwegian law.
They're one step away from Sweden, so who can
essentially, yeah. And so, full blown, basically by default, the court had to find for the mother, even though she was clinically schizophrenic. And the final indignity, and the thing that repulsed me the most, was the fact that after Anders Breivik goes on this awful, horrific shooting spree, the mother, instead of making like a statement, instead of coming out and taking responsibility, because she knows that immediately the media is going to come for her, what does she do? She checks herself into a clinic. In that moment, basically so that she can be in seclusion and not have to answer for herself. It was everything from top to bottom. It was just the most repugnant. Fucking, this woman is an awful human being. But brilliant video that Karen Strahan did on this subject, actually, and she got a lot of shit for making that video at the time. But a very well researched, very thorough, well articulated video.
You know that whole issue there was recently I covered in probably my This Week in Stupid video. This British politician who's like, well, women shouldn't really have long prison sentences. We need half as many women in prison because they are the victims of, you know, women who commit crimes are often the victims of, you know, people who have committed crimes towards them. And the thing is, that's not true. That's actually not true. It's true for men, but it's not true for women, what studies have shown. And so it's like, you know, I'm not trying to say anything with that. It's just, you know, Anders Breivik is the classic example of, you know, someone has, you know, molested and maltreated him when he was young, and lo and behold, he goes on to do something monstrous. You know, he's like the poster boy for it, you know, and I don't know, you know, she gets away with just checking herself into a clinic and is not held accountable for this.
Yeah, it's a classic. and the legal system here, even in the States especially, is, I mean, a lot of MRAs are based out of Canada and North America, and a lot of that has to do with injustices in how the legal system deals with guardianship issues and so forth, and visitation rights and child support, and the fact that men are always accountable for child support. Women aren't always accountable for child support. If a woman leaves a man, in a lot of cases, the guy either can't petition or simply because society frowns upon it, just won't. You know, because he'll look like a puss, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of anti-egalitarian, isn't it? I've noticed that there's someone in the comments called Feminist Rage who's saying, "Oh my God, of course these misogynists are anti-feminist. Stop hating women." There are loads of male feminists, and I hate them a lot more than I hate any woman. So, what does that make me?
It's true, because they're so fucking snooty about it too. It's like,
God.
Hey guys, look, I've got a dick and I'm supporting this. Like, give me a fucking cookie. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing this, and it's like, is it getting you laid, mate? Well, no, obviously not. Look at you. You know. How much pussy do we think Ben Kuchera's ever had in his life? Feminist or no? You know, it's the only way women are going to spend any time with Ben Kuchera.
Line rescue, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, you know, these guys are like, they're always fat, they're always balding, they're always the sort of men who just don't get any female attention, and I swear to God, it's the only way that they can get women to talk to them. I swear to God.
It's interesting though, because many of the more articulate and outspoken advocates of men's rights are women. I mean, Girl Rights What was literally one of the first people I had ever encountered on YouTube or anywhere who had even acquainted me with the term men's rights advocate, and quite obviously she has a vagina. So it was bizarre, you know. It's a very strange thing, and I would say every single person who I know, apart from maybe one or two people who outright identify as men's rights advocates, has a vagina. I think it's literally to the point where women are just like, okay, this is getting kind of to fucked up levels.
Well, I mean, it's
fair anymore.
I've noticed that there is a certain kind of woman who seems to become a feminist, and thankfully the kind of woman who becomes a feminist is rather in the minority, and I guess that's not fair entirely, actually, because there are like gradients of feminism, and you get some women who go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to be a feminist and help women in the third world, or help women who are being sex trafficked and stuff like that. You think, okay, great, that's good. I think that's
help women who are getting compulsory clitorectomies because they live in fucked upistan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, well, you don't need to be a feminist to support that cause. Stop that shit from happening. It's fine. But then you get those sort of like the sort of Anita Sarkeesian, Brianna Wu sort of types, who are just like, well, men are evil, men are evil, and I have a Patreon, so, you need to start donating to my non-profit, and they're just, I think they're profiteers, I really do. I don't think that anything good can come of them, and I think they're feminists.
Look, in the Anita Sarkeesian being a profiteer issue has long since been confirmed.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's be real. I think Amazing Atheist, ironically, made one of the best videos on this subject. If it was about principle for her, then she would be willing to stand for her principle. And when that bomb threat was called in,
oh god,
she did not stand on principle. Meanwhile, Marilyn Manson
absolutely did.
Marilyn Manson, a guy who is all about the money and has made that perfectly clear, stood on principle. What in the fuck does that tell you about how profligate Anita Sarkeesian's motivations in fact are?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that the police very quickly came out and said, look, this isn't a real threat. This is just bullshit. She could have carried on. There would have been absolutely no danger. She knows it. The police knew it. The university knew it. And yet she didn't. And she took massive amounts of donations shortly after cancelling that speech. Yeah. What a fucking surprise. Come on, follow the fucking money, people. There's nothing else left to show. It's all been revealed. It's all out. She has had to reveal her fucking financial position because she is a non-profit.
Yeah.
And we can see, everyone can see. I mean, what the fuck is anyone taking Sarkeesian sensibly for? And then you see, like, did you see the thing where they're going to be getting any Sarkeesian in the classrooms? Talking about video
yes.
games? Oh, fuck me.
Yeah, no, that was actually a question that I answered while you were away having some urination. Someone asked me about that curriculum, and I was like, you know, like I said earlier with the fucking, when I was in journalism school, it's like the same, that does not surprise me at all, because it's just a logical, I knew it was only a matter of time before Anita Sarkeesian was taught in college, because it's a logical extension of where college curriculums are already going. Yeah. It's a completely logical distinction. It's just as propagandist, it's just as ill-informed, and it's just as flagrantly ideological.
If you read it, it's almost word for word, verbatim, just the kind of, you've seen it 1,000 times before. I mean, the very thing's called, is gaming a boys' club? And then later on they'll say, oh, 52% of players are male and 48% are female. Well, then the answer's no.
Yeah, the answer is, that's roughly 50-50. What the fuck?
And that's page 3 of 14 that information's on. So it's like, what the fuck is the justification for any of this? You know? I mean, in fact, just looking through this, it's complete bullshit, right?
Yeah. Sorry, someone just asked if Razorfist is a journalist. No, I explained this earlier. For those who are coming in late, I went to journalism school. I'm not a journalist. I went to journalism school and decided it wasn't for me after I learned how just outright nakedly ideological it is, how borderline propagandist it is. Like, I wouldn't even say borderline. It well eclipsed into the territory of outright propaganda. I mean, Goebbels would be proud with some of these fucking professors I encountered. And this was, as I said, a very prominent journalism school, one of the top 2 institutions in America. So,
see, I mean, I'm just looking at this thing, and on page 3, they've got post the statements written below around the classroom using printouts. I have watched people play video games. I have played video games. I play video games on a regular basis. I have witnessed sexism in video games. People have said or done sexist things through video game interaction. I believe video games can have a negative effect on attitudes and perspectives in general. I believe video games can perpetuate sexism. Yeah. And then, what the fuck is that? Just
well, it's a classic case of, God, I already did a video about, have you ever seen my vlog, All Guns Blazing?
I have not.
It was about a video, it was about Dianne Feinstein, an American senator out of California, who was basically trying to regulate video games. And she also then turned around, well, this is actually after, it's basically talking about the parallels between how they essentially use the same ideology, the exact same, identical arguments, in fact, to regulate firearms that they use to regulate guns, essentially. The same idea. This is a trigger, this breeds a killer, it's the game that's guilty. Every time there's a shooting, oh, he was playing video games and listening to Marilyn Manson. You know what I mean? It's never the kid was batshit and he had a mental illness and it wasn't treated and the parents were providing a nurturing environment for him. It's always, hey, what did he eat that fucking Friday? Like,
you're not anything other than the parents, isn't it? God fucking bid it could be the parents' fault. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
God, I fucking.
So it's kind of the same argument. Oh, video games cause sexism. Yeah, in the same way that they breed a killer, right? Which wasn't there just a study that came out that flat out found zero connection between video game violence and violence as a human being? Like violence.
The only studies that ever say anything to the contrary are done by, you're going to be shocked at this, feminist ideologues.
Yeah.
You know, where their entire careers are to be academic feminists. And lo and behold, their research shows that everyone is sexist and everything causes sexism. Oh my God,
true.
Really? Yeah,
it's funny how everything just has a way of dovetailing into the narrative they were already actively promulgating to begin with. Isn't it interesting how that works?
They didn't have to change their position on anything. It's just like the Pentagon doing a study is Vladimir Putin autistic? It turns out he is. It's just like...
like I said, I'm waiting on the New York Times headline that just says, Vladimir Putin, a Spurglord. I'm just saying.
I'm just taking a swig then.
Did you just do a spit take? Killer.
Nearly. I contained it. Do you know what I found really interesting is if you look at the feminist frequency curation on Steam, this just says it all really. She's got like 200,000 YouTube subscribers. She's got 250, 300,000 followers on Twitter. She's on the Colbert Report. She's on various other fucking news agencies. She's getting her shit taught in universities. She has less than 7,000 followers on Steam.
Yeah.
They don't play fucking games.
Well, and that just comes right down to the fact that when you're actually in the business of courting gamers aren't fucking interested in what you're selling. It's the rest of the media at large that wants to make a big issue out of it, that are interested in her fucking message. And most of them were pushing that message before she ever existed. So.
Yeah, absolutely. She as like the opportunist that she fucking clearly is, has just come along and been like, oh, this is something that I can get on board with. Because if you look at her early work, wasn't about feminism. Her early work was just, I don't know, anything that she could get hands on. There was one Baggett guy who was doing handwriting and stuff like this, and she was just trying to make a buck, Yeah. But and yeah, if you look at, say, like on Steam, Total Biscuits, almost 500,000 followers. Oh, what a surprise. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a lot bigger than her, but
yeah,
you know what I mean. For 250,000 subscribers and followers, she should have more than 7,000 Steam people.
No fucking shit. And you like also how she called out. I was fucking repulsed when she called out Alpha Omega Sin over his video about her.
Yeah.
Calling him a fucking angry reviewer. Like, guys, for those who don't know, I do a podcast with Alpha Omega Sin called the Hate Bit Podcast.
Yes, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had weekly interactions with Alpha Omega Sin where we're pretty good friends. He's a great guy. I don't talk to him nearly as much as I wish I could, but because we're both really busy. But he's like, can I just say, the title of angry YouTuber does not become Alpha Omega Sin. Although he gets worked up and he's passionate and he records his videos and he certainly seems that way. Can I just tell you up front, you don't know what a person is like 23 hours and like 55 minutes out of a day based on a 5-minute video. You just fucking don't. Alpha Omega Sin is one of the most even... I'm sorry, what?
I don't think that anyone really thinks he's some angry YouTuber. I mean, even if you give rants, I mean, that's... I've watched a bunch of his videos, and he seems like a really nice dude.
Yeah. Dude, he's just a badass. He's an incredibly down-to-earth. He's one of the nicest people I've encountered on YouTube. He's not someone who has an ego at all. He's not... And look, I understand my own character faults. I've got plenty of ego and whatever. Like, I'm not a perfect human being. Alpha is just a genuinely chill dude. And to describe him as angry simply because you want to paint him with this wide brush.
Yeah.
And the other people that are decrying her, she called out Thunderfoot and a couple of others. Well,
yeah, it was just... Again, it was completely inappropriate. I mean, Mr. Repsion, I found laughable because not him himself. He seems like a nice enough guy, and he's just some skinny fucking kid. And then you've got Thunderfoot, who obviously doesn't make aggressive videos or anything like that. You've got Alpha Omega Sin. Who was the other one?
I can't recall. There was like a photo. She put together a little photo collage of all the angry YouTubers, quote unquote, that had called her out. But I just thought the Alpha thing was utterly laughable. And yes, somebody mentioned in the comments here that Alpha utterly decimated her ass. Yeah, it was fucking scorched earth. That was a merciless reply. I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. And I was going to make a video in his defense, but I was like, wait a minute. I'm going to wait for Alpha to say something. Because I'm pretty sure he's going to do this better than I could. So... And sure enough, he did. It was motherfucking scorched earth.
Yeah, I saw it, man. It was just like, yep, that was exactly what was needed. But you know,
you really have to. It speaks something. It says something about Anita Sarkeesian that she's calling out a guy who is arguably one of the nicest people on YouTube. Like,
well, no, it's bait. It's bait. It's fucking bait. She wants people emailing her and tweeting her and whatnot, angrily saying, "Bitch, you don't know this guy. He's a really nice guy. You're a fucking bitch." Blah 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 blah. That's what she wants. Because that is feeding into her fucking narrative, and boom, that is cash in the fucking bank for her. It was drama alert. Again, I watched a few of that guy's videos. If you look at him, he's the most nice-sounding dude. He's not me or you know what I mean? They're not, none of them are like us. You know?
Wielding prick, I think, is what Sargon is attempting to say, folks.
That is exactly what I'm saying. I know that I can come across fucking strident and aggressive, and I know what I'm fucking saying, and I'm confident in it, sort of thing. And you're very much the same. And if it was us, I could maybe say, okay, maybe. I've probably shouted about her in a video at some point. So yeah, but just she's doing it for fucking clicks. She's doing it for donations, and the thing is, what pisses me off the most about her is just like, why won't anyone just hold her to account? Just say, okay, well, come and justify your position. Just come and justify what you have said.
She's been invited to debates. She's never going to do that shit. She's never going to make that mistake. Because she doesn't, number one, to my knowledge anyways, maybe I'm wrong, she's not learned in the realm of debate. I suspect that she's not adept in the art of it. So she definitely is an ideological sniper. She takes pot shots from cover, and she leaves her little pot shots laying out there in the public consciousness, and everybody rushes to the corpse after she's taken her shot and sounds this fucking alarm like, hey, there's a dick who's taking shots at people, but she's never gonna stand and fight hand to hand with someone because she fucking can't. She cannot. She can't defend her positions because, number one, they're not coming from her. And number two, even if they were coming from her, she lacks the capacity and command of basic facts to actually defend them in a public forum.
There was what was the most recent one she did? The ABC one, where she sat there and I can't remember exactly how she says it at the end, but she's basically going right a lot of the time, and I'm just like, no, and you can tell that like the person interviewing her doesn't really look like they believe her. It's like, that you have no proof. What are you suggesting? That sexism is causing violence against women, or what? I mean, there's no evidence for anything that Anita is suggesting. Violence against anyone, male or female, has just plummeted since the rise of video games. It's, it's just like... that's the funniest part. Like, it blows my mind. And again, it comes back to the parallels between firearms and video games. Gun ownership in the United States at an all-time high, at a 40-year high, I believe. Mm-hmm. Actually, no, at an all-time high. Gun crime is at a 40-year low. So even though the media kind of blows up these mass shootings and so forth because they have to, because they have a fucking narrative to perpetuate, rather, it's kind of the same idea. Video games are more popular than ever, and yet video game related violence related to whatever the fuck any violence at all, is
down,
just down
across the board. 40-year low for gun crime.
And like, if you look at like rape and sexual assaults, if you look at just a graph that's tracks from say the 70s, there is a colossal drop when you hit sort of like the mid 80s, early 90s. And then when you get to the 2000s, it is so fucking low, and it's just like, okay, so when Jonathan McIntosh and Denise Sarkeesian go, oh, toxic masculinity, the male gaze, oh, sexism in video games, it's like, okay, it seems to be doing a good job of preventing violence against women. Just, the evidence says that. I mean, I'm a throwback who cares about evidence and shit, but...
It's ironic, though. I mean, look, we're poking holes in... Isn't that Anita Sarkeesian thing? Where is that curriculum at? Is that in North America?
Without doubt. Well, it's going to be somewhere in North America. I don't know. I'm just looking at it now.
I'm just wondering if it's in the United States or if it's in Canada. Because this is an element that hardly anybody talks about, but Anita Sarkeesian is a product of Canadian political correctness, which is a fucking 900-pound gorilla that nobody has stopped in like 30 fucking years.
They're basically the really Sweden of the English-speaking world, aren't they? Canada.
It is. There's a really weird, bizarre. It seems like a lot of this radical feminism and SJW and all these things that we're dealing with right now, a lot of it germinated in Canada first. And I don't know if it's because of their proximity to the United States that they feel they have to be contrarian, and so they go really hard in the other direction. I don't know what it is, but a lot of these, like the hyper obnoxious mouthpieces of this particular ideology, and then of course Anita Sarkeesian being their sort of figurehead, come from Canada. It's really, really weird.
A lot of it gestates in Canada. After looking to Adrian Shaw and a lot of the Diagra stuff, it turns out that Canadian feminists, they're a lot like the game journalists. They have, I mean, if you go to, just bring up a browser now, right, and go to the fembotcollective.org, you will find almost all of the feminist members of Diagra are a member of this Fembot Collective. And there are thousands.
Well, and before this, I mean, goddamn, before I even encountered Girl Writes What, I remember hearing about the slut walk that they were holding in Victoria, which was a big deal, and a lot of people covered it. And the whole idea was people were going to dress really, really slutty and march in a fucking parade because the idea was, I'm not asking for it even though I'm dressed this way, and so forth. And that was... So that was already... And that was in Canada. That was in... I forget exactly if it was in Vancouver. I forget what city it was in. But again, that was Canada. That's kind of where it's coming from. It's bizarre, and yet it's interesting because the men's rights thing, a lot of it has come from Canada as well. Girl Writes What is in Canada. So.
It's that's the thing. It's all gestating in Canadian universities, because all these collectives and shit, they're just academic networks of academic feminists where they've all got tenure in their jobs, and they just sit there and just research, or I say research loosely. They write about feminism and they sit there and tell each other how, I'm quoting verbatim here, men use rape as a form of societal control and shit like that. And I'm not kidding. There is actually a university professor who wrote those words, committed them to paper, and then someone cited them. And it's just like, okay. That's men use rape as a form of societal control. I mean, that's why it's illegal.
Right. I know that every time I'm driving down the road and somebody cuts me off, I cut them off, get out of my car, and rape the shit out of them. That's just how that works.
And then the police stand up and go, "Oh no, you're a white man. Carry on, sir."
Carry on. Patriarchy has to look out for its own.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you see the fucking cartoon world that we're generating just by following their basic fucking logic? Are you seeing,
incredible, It's incredible. You couldn't make it up. If you'd written a science fiction story about like some female dystopia where they were in universities and they were writing about how men use rape as a tool of control and stuff, people would be like, "This is ridiculous." You know, my suspension of disbelief is broken because that is impossible. No one would be so stupid as to commit those words to paper, and yet this is real life. So, I mean, I'm looking at this Fembot Collective, right? The first thing on there is join us for the Fembot Editathon and Hackathon of Wikipedia. They want feminists to get together and feminist edit Wikipedia to do. I don't even know what they want, and
how exactly is that gonna work? Like what are you gonna do? Like take an article about a bunch of guys in World War I, a bunch of dudes with dicks, sitting in trenches shooting at each other. How are you going to turn that into a fucking feminist treatise exactly? Like, how is that? Well, you see, Archduke Franz Ferdinand had too big of a dick and was perpetuating the patriarchy. And
the important thing is his wife. Well, no, actually, they say
the black hand was a phallic symbol. That's what it was.
They say they will be writing historical figures marginalized because of their gender into Wikipedia. It's like, who? What are you? Oh God, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, because there's not a big enough article about, say, Joan of Arc. Like, no, nobody talks about that bitch, right?
Yeah, there's no Boudica article or anything like that. God forbid. The whole thing is it's fucking ridiculous. But it's in universities. It's being treated as if it's an academic subject. I mean, this is the intellectual degeneracy of the Western world happening in front of our eyes. Kids are being indoctrinated into this shit.
Yeah, I don't want, for the record, I don't want people to misinterpret what I'm saying about Canada as like being anti-Canadian or anything. I think mainly it's because there's kind of a more pronounced sort of academia in Canada, for lack of a better term. Like, America is known for its colleges. People come to America from all over the world to go to places like Yale and Harvard and so forth, obviously. But it's like they've taken, up in Canada, they've taken the ideology, the more radical ideology of places like UC Berkeley, for example, arguably the most left-wing university in the world, and taken it to a cartoonish degree. And I don't know why that's happened specifically in Canada, but I do think that it's more of a question of, the scholastic associations and so forth having a certain amount of ideological and confirmational bias in their fundamental way of thinking. And it just seems to have sort of permeated an entire generation of Canadian students.
I think that
very propaganda.
A certain amount is really underplaying it. I'm sure that the STEM fields are relatively untouched because you can't really put this kind of subjective, speculative bullshit into the STEM fields because STEM fields require results. But when you come to humanities and you have feminists suggesting that men use rape as a form of societal control to maintain the patriarchy, you've got to wonder, where has this come from? And then if you look, it's just, I mean, that is just, to quote one of the fucking feminists who were on the, what was it? It wasn't the ABC one. It was one of them. But she was just like, I think misogyny is the air that we breathe. And it's like, okay. Misogyny is the air that we breathe. I mean,
no, bitch, your own farts are the air that you breathe. I'm sorry.
Exactly. The whole world is just geared to hating women. I mean, it's so endemic. Hey, everyone everywhere hates women. It's amazing women get along with anything. It's fucking insulting as well. I mean, really, if you think we were going to set up a society that was geared to hating women, why would you think you're on TV? Why would you think you'd be at university? Why would you think you would have any of this shit?
No shit.
I mean, this is a really incompetent patriarchy. I'm fucking disappointed to be part of it. Honestly.
Yeah, and that's the main problem. If the patriarchy really existed, it seems like they claim that it's thorough enough that they really shouldn't be allowed to say what they're saying.
Absolutely not.
It seems like patriarchy wouldn't even be a word if the patriarchy actually fucking existed.
Well, rape certainly wouldn't be illegal, would it? I mean, Jesus, the very idea, women voting, women owning land, businesses, property, what kind of fucking nonsense would that be? Why? Why would a patriarchy allow any of this? Oh, feminists fought the patriarchy. How many feminists died? Where was the feminist civil war? Oh God, there's such. I just can't understand why they're allowed to do this. Why are people going along with it? Why aren't they just like, no, get out of my office? Someone sensible, just a normal academic who can think, should have just looked at this and gone, no, this is bullshit. Obviously, this is not true. Get out.
Or even an academic who, having a bias, comes out and admits it. You know what I mean? Like, so many academics, and I think it comes down to salary a little bit. I've always suspected this. I mean, why? Because think about it for a moment. Would you get into academia purely because you're not getting into it for the salary? Because unless you're working at a fucking Harvard or Princeton or something, you're not making bank. And you're probably not, like, rock star affluent, even at that. But, I mean, what's the main reason why you would get into academia, then? Well, chiefly because you want to promulgate your worldview. That's always been kind of my theory.
Wow.
Is that
hang on.
it's sort of the only incentive for getting into education.
There are a couple of reasons, I think. And I think that and I hate to say this, but I think they intersect. I think, it's not a bad amount of money that they make, is it?
Yeah.
It's not minimum wage. It's not a piddling amount. It's they're never going to be fucking wealthy. They're never going to be rich and own a mansion or anything. But they're always going to have enough money to get by. It's never it's not a poor amount, and it's going to be a secure job. When they get fucking tenure, they're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? It's a job for life, which you're not going to get anywhere else these days. And I think you're right. It is definitely about promoting a method of thought. And in fact, it's just become a breeding ground for ideologies these days. Various kind of extremist ideologies. It's not even like ideologies that are even connected to the real world anymore.
Yeah, no, I think it's ridiculous. Here's how you know it's biased. Because if you walked into a classroom one day and a teacher was as biased to the right or for men as professors are to the left and for women right now, it would have to be a situation where you walked into a classroom and immediately, off the bat, the professor literally said, "So taxation is theft, and we should form a militia and overthrow the goddamn government." That to me is the clear and present indicator that professors are somewhat biased, and the overall field of college education is in general.
Yeah, academia became exceptionally liberal at some point, didn't it? And the thing is,
somewhere around 1969.
Probably about that. And do you know what annoys me is that I've always considered myself quite liberal as myself. I obviously when I'm talking to social justice warriors, they call me right wing, but that's because to them anyone is right wing. You couldn't be further left. So
that's how they operate. If you're not, it's a complete with us or against us mentality. Kind of a situation. Like earlier, we're talking. I'm asked if Angry Joe is for or against anti-Gamergate, and I'm like, he's anti-Gamergate, but who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter.
He's happy to ignore
that thought process. Whatever the collection of synapses that have to connect to make that process, where you're like, oh, that person is against me, but who gives a fuck? That doesn't exist for a certain school of social justice warriors. That does not exist at all. For anyone who self-identifies as a social justice warrior, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I just can't get over it. I mean, like, for example, they call me a right winger. Like, okay, what does it take to be right wing? And it's like, well, I mean, for me, I always thought it was anti-taxation, anti-homosexuality, pro-religion. I mean, what other things are right wing?
Yeah.
I don't even...
Well, it's right wing. Short version: right wing, small government; left wing, large government. Right? That's the simplest summary of both.
I guess, but I mean,
it's become a whole other thing now. It encompasses all these other. Now you've got the social justice agenda. It's almost now to the point where socially it's more important politically. Like, in terms of determining your political orientation, your stance on social issues is somehow more important. Like, which is ridiculous because, like, arguably the single most conservative presidential candidate. I mean, I imagine you're not familiar with this guy living in Great Britain, but over here in the States, Barry Goldwater is probably the most conservative.
I'm actually not familiar with him now.
Yeah, of the last 60, 70 years, probably the single most conservative politician to have a serious shot at becoming president. And he was also one of the earliest advocates for the legalization of marijuana. I mean, my home state of Arizona was, to my knowledge, either the first or one of the first states to legalize medicinal marijuana. And he was also one of the first gay rights advocates among politicians, and he was doing this in the 70s. 70s and early 80s. He was arguing and advocating for gays in the military, gay marriage, and this guy is as right-wing a Republican as they come. And the Libertarian Party wound up kind of hijacking his platform. But that just goes to show you, like, where you fall down socially has flat zero to do with your political orientation.
That's really interesting.
Because nothing.
Wasn't it the Democratic Party that was the party that was in favor of slavery?
Yeah.
And then they seemed...
That's the thing. Well, the Democratic Party not only was on the side of the South in the Civil War, but a large amount of the KKK's early membership was registered with the Democratic Party at the time. There was sort of a partisan flip that occurred in America a couple of times, and the most notable one was in the 50s and 60s, where Republicans and Democrats essentially switched sides on the political spectrum.
No, that was actually what I was going to come to. I'm not sure that's fair to Republicans, and I don't.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I would argue that that's the true Republican platform, actually.
Well, I don't think the Republican message has necessarily changed all that much, has it? And it just seems
I think it absolutely has. No, it has. It mainly started to change under Reagan with the whole neoconservative thing that happened. But prior to that, Republican was very
right.
Yeah. So
it's
a classic case of, like, you cannot isolate someone's entire political orientation down to how they fall down on an issue like gay marriage. It's a social fucking issue. You can stand wherever you want to.
I find it ridiculous that these things are partisan issues. It's an individual issue. It's not like a party. Shouldn't really be taking a stance on it. Surely it should be an individual saying I am in favour or against. I mean, I don't see any reason to be against gay marriage, but I'm not religious.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the only argument these days.
Yeah.
But it just seems that the Democratic Party has always been very, very concerned with race. Just everything like the progressives talk about. I can't imagine discriminating against someone based on their race.
Yeah, you want to talk about an instrument for manipulation and control. What do you think it is when a Democratic or a left-leaning politician, or even a right-wing, I mean, it happens with Republicans all the time, too, where the Republican will say, unless, well, let's use the left-wing example first, where they kind of separate people into various ethnic minorities where, you need to stay over here in your Mexican group, and you need to stay over here in your Asian group, and you need to stay over here in your African-American group, and no integration because you need to be proud of who you are. Oh, and hey, by the way, you're all supposed to vote for us. That's basically how that works. And the Republicans do that to varying degrees as well. I'm not absolving them of responsibility, but the Democrats are really over the top about it. I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
It kind of is, and I think the advent of modern statistics and the efficiency by which we can collect statistics has really become. It's kind of really been, I think, one of the fundamental problems that we're having is that we can see how many blacks, women, Hispanics, whatever, are doing various things, and as soon as the progressives look at them, they're like, wow, they're choosing to do things. And it's like, yes, they are. They're choosing to do things. Like, and
then they dogpile on them, and if you're an African American and you support something that they don't agree with, then you're an Uncle Tom. Or you're whatever. They're gonna call you. So you're a coon. They're gonna call you whatever the fuck they're gonna call you. You see it with people all the time when they differ when someone of color differs with the traditional leftist platform.
Yeah.
Whether it's say Alan West here in America or anyone really out there. You saw it with. What's that chick? Kaylee Cuoco?
Yeah. She's just like, well, I've never really been oppressed, so why would I want to be a feminist? And they're like, you bitch!
Man, they fucking drew and quartered her.
Oh, God, and that's just it. Talking about just the hypocrisy. Oh, a bunch of feminists harassing a woman because she doesn't want to be a feminist. Oh, that is just perfect. And just to the point where she has to come out and say, look, I'm really sorry, please stop lynching me. Fucking hell.
Exactly.
You couldn't make it up. It sounds ridiculous. In what world do feminists attack women for just not agreeing with them? Just Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and not the worst part of it all was she wasn't even calling out feminism. She just said she didn't feel oppressed.
Yeah, she didn't.
Okay, maybe she's led a privileged life. She's not saying she wasn't. I mean, maybe she agrees with them 100%, but they jumped down her throat the moment she didn't toe their party line word for word. The moment that happened, she was in conflict with half-wit, third-wave feminist dogma, essentially, and she could no longer be allowed to live.
I can't understand why the feminists were just like, well, you're welcome. I would have been like, yeah, you're welcome. That's fine. That's great. Not a problem. And she probably been like, yeah, it's great. I don't feel oppressed. This is wonderful. But that's the whole point, isn't it? Everything they say, the whole ideology, their worldview is built on the idea that there is an oppressive patriarchy. It's disadvantaging women and advantaging men, and the feminists have to fight it because it's their boogeyman. And if she's like, well, there isn't really one, is there? Then it kind of undermines everything they've fucking said the whole time. So obviously she couldn't be allowed to live.
Yeah. Yeah. So you come upon her in the path and someone must die.
Exactly. It's, she's got to be on it. Someone in the comments keeps asking me about the Cenk Uygur Karen Strawn interview. So
you're going to have to fill me in.
Right, yeah, I'll fill you in. So yeah, Cenk Uygur is the owner, I think, of the Young Turks, and he's certainly a host of it. And he is.
Oh, the interview with Girl Writes What?
That's it. Yeah, and he's a progressive.
They were talking about this earlier when I was answering questions.
Did you see it?
I was just linked to it on Twitter. I literally, the moment I'm done here, I'm gonna watch that.
I'll give you a quick overview of it. Basically, Cenk thinks that he's some exceptionally reasonable guy, and it was normally on certain subjects he is, but when it comes to feminism and progressivism, he's not, and he's irrational, in fact. And basically, Girl Writes What provided him with reasonable evidence. I mean, it was a telephone interview, so she didn't have hard evidence, but reasonable evidence that, frankly, Cenk couldn't refute. And instead, he started shouting her down, calling her irrational and radical and stuff like that, because she was like, well, women weren't really all that oppressed. I mean, it's not like men hated women all throughout history. And he was like, oh, now you're being a radical, now you're unreasonable. It's like, Cenk, what the fuck are you saying? Are you saying...
I mean, come on, this is, like, you want to talk about unreasonable, this is the Young Turks. This is the same network that reported that Michael Brown had been shot in the back execution style, and hey, it's February of 2015. I'm still waiting on that retraction, guys. Mm-hmm. Still waiting on that.
It wasn't Michael Brown a bit of a thug?
Yeah, well, I mean, come on, how many months later, we know that's not true. 4 autopsies have fucking confirmed it. Every bit of blood spatter analysis confirms it was never true, and no retraction from the Young Turks. So they don't exactly traffic in facts when they conflict with their message.
They do not. That's the thing, that they say that they are openly progressive, which is just, I mean, for me, that is just the same as saying, well, we are openly Christian. It's like, okay, great. You have an ideological bias that you cannot separate from your reporting. That's what you're saying. You may as well call yourselves Kotaku, because that's what you're telling me is subjective, and as long as it fits your fucking narrative, then you're going to go with it, and if it doesn't, holy shit, you're going to, whitewash it, sweep it under the table, pretend it never happened, And it really pissed me off. But basically, yeah, so the interview went along quite well. And, it was going quite well, and it got to the point where Cenk was like, well, surely you've got to admit that women were oppressed in the past, and she was like, well, not really oppressed, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but it just got to a single point where he was just like, oh, no, that's just totally unreasonable, and Karen was just like, well, no, that's just not how it was, and she's the one who has researched this, because, again, the whole thing, it undermines everything about the feminist narrative, and Cenk cracks me up. I can tell everyone exactly what Cenk's deal is, right? Cenk is a fat fuck. Cenk is a fat fuck who didn't get laid in high school. I'm telling you this now, right?
Well, first off, he's the long-lost progeny of Reggie Fils-Aimé of Nintendo, first off. I just have to say that. I swear to God it's his long-lost son.
Cenk is some fat fuck who didn't get laid in college, right? He didn't really get all that much female attention in college, but he's an intelligent guy. He was quite popular. He's quite a charismatic guy as well. So he's probably thinking, why the fuck aren't I getting laid like all these other guys around me? And so he ends up going the fucking white knight route of, I will protect women wherever they are, and I must sit there and say, well, I know better than everyone else because otherwise everything I'm doing is fucking wrong, you know? And it's just, and someone in the comments like, you're fat too. Yeah, I am fucking fat. That's why I can tell you what Cenk's mindset is, all right? I know what his fucking mindset is. He's a fat fuck who didn't get enough attention, and he's trying to make up for it now by being the king of the white knights. Fuck Cenk, seriously.
Well, not only that, but I mean, okay, as more time goes on, are we still going to be calling these guys the Young Turks? Okay, are these guys going to be the Young Turks? At some point, do we get to the middle-aged Turks? Is this ever in the fucking?
Well, the Young Turks is actually it's a political revolutionary party from Turkey that they're named after.
Right.
They were called the Young Turks. They were political radicals. Sargon and Razor, talk about Movie Bob next. Yes. What's your opinion on Movie Bob?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. They say it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong, so what's Movie Blob's excuse exactly?
That is a good question. I tell you, my favourite quote from Movie Bob was, I can't believe people define their identity on the media they consume. Is that right, Movie Bob? Is that right, Movie Bob? You fat fucking hypocrite. You know what I mean?
No, seriously, a guy named Movie Bob says that movies influence people's sense of identity. If the symbolism were any more obvious, it would be a Silent Hill monster with a penis for a face. Like, are you kidding me?
I can't get over it, and it just there is just so much to go through with Movie Bob. Movie Bob is like Cenk on steroids. He is Cenk may have had like one or two girlfriends throughout school, and so, you know, for a few months maybe, and so he got a little bit, so he's not too bad. But Movie Bob is what happens when, you know, I heard a term called incel a while ago, and I think it was made up by the social justice warriors because it sounds kind of Orwellian, but I think it means involuntarily celibate. And holy shit, if there was ever a man for whom that applies, it's fucking Movie Blob.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, look, Movie Bob is... I'll never forget. Okay. I'll never forget the first time that I encountered Movie Bob. I had just released my first episode ever on... I originally uploaded all my episodes to screwattack.com before I did, you know, YouTube or anything.
Yeah.
And I put the first episode up on Screw Attack, and this was in May of 2009. And Movie Bob had just started the Game Over Thinker series.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in a Your Vids Don't Suck competition to basically see who would be the next new feature on Screw Attack. And he wound up winning.
Wow.
It was him versus the Psycho Taku, so not exactly Muhammad Ali versus Superman here, but it was interesting to say the least. And I remember the first episode that I saw of his, and I'm sitting there watching it with Taryn Gell, my editor, and his words describing what he was watching, I'll never forget them. His exact words were, as he's listening to Movie Bob, because if he's not so bad now, but in the beginning, he would kind of whisper into his microphone, like, you know, the thing about video game journalism is that this happens, and so, like, he's kind of low-talking into the microphone, and I'll never forget my editor turning to me and saying, is he whispering so his mom doesn't hear him recording this in the adjacent room? Like, it literally sounded that way, and I completely fell out laughing. I couldn't... That was the moment where Movie Bob was defined for me. But actually, are you aware that he did a parody of me recently?
Of you?
Of me?
No.
Because
I would
made,
love to see this.
For those who are watching the stream right now, I've made a fat joke or 17 about him on my own program.
Obviously. Who doesn't?
I've had quite a few shots at his expense. I vaguely remember making a comment in my Modern Warfare video, or it was either I think it was Modern Warfare 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about the stupid code names that the characters have in that game. Mm-hmm. And one of them is named Grinch, and one of them is named Truck. And I was just like spitballing. It was all stream of consciousness. And I'm like, what? Yeah. How do you get a name like Truck? Like, even if you're in the military, how do you get named Truck? Do you just own a truck? I'm like, can you just get a name based on something that you own? I guess that goes a long way to explaining why Movie Bob's code name is Semen Encrusted Tifa Blow Up Doll, or something like that. This guy is like the archetypal weeaboo Nihongo. I prefer the term Nihongophile, which I coined. He's that guy. You know, sexism is bad until Japan does it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of that kind of thought process.
Fanboy shit, isn't it?
Absolutely. The guy who honestly has uttered in an unironic context the phrase "Final Fantasy VII is a peerless work of art." Like what? That guy.
No. Okay. I mean, I'm not a Final Fantasy fan, but I have lots of friends who are. They absolutely adore Final Fantasy.
Hey, and that's great. Hey, I don't hate Final Fantasy VII as much as I let on.
It's not like the Mona Lisa of video games, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not panacea for the masses. Okay. It's not a work of art to rival the Garden at Giverny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not that. So, and he absolutely, in an unironic context, describes it as such.
My favorite thing about Movie Bob is when he goes on about things being mature. He's like, oh, well, this we should have a mature conversation about video games. It's like, Bob, have you watched your fucking videos? You dress up as fucking various video game characters, and you have conversations with yourself like you're a fucking teenager. You know, you are the last person who's ever going to be able to dictate to anyone about maturity. For fuck's sake, man.
No shit. This is a guy who dresses up in pink pajamas as a ninja and fights himself.
Exactly. So we're not talking about maturity, Bob. We can talk about immaturity if you want. And I'm happy to lower myself, you know.
Which, by the way, I saw Movie Bob in a skin-tight onesie, unitard, hot pink, in that ninja video. That was 2 years ago. I just stopped laughing 15 minutes before the show started. Like, that will never be anything but unerringly hilarious to me.
I feel the same way about Movie Bob dressed up as Mario. It's just that I mean, he genuinely looks like Mario after he's been one of the mushrooms, and he's turned into Big Mario, and it's just like, right, okay, great. You're like this big fat Italian guy.
Yeah, motherfucker, how many mushrooms did this fucker have, exactly?
Exactly.
He must have had a mushroom casserole at some point here.
Right. He's just,
which begs the question of how many mushrooms Jim Sterling ate, but that's another issue.
That's a question. I kind of want to weigh each one, and and just have a sort of weight competition with Movie Bob and Jim Sterling. I don't know. But the thing is, I tell you what, I really don't hate Jim Sterling as much as Movie Bob.
Neither do I. Neither do I, for the record. I think Jim Sterling is a much more amiable person than Movie Bob. Movie Bob is much more. He's much more strident in his ideological bias.
Yes, he's a lot deeper into it. I think Jim Sterling is probably the result of falling in with a bad crowd.
Yeah. Well, I think Jim Sterling predominantly is comedic in nature. I think that's basically what he's trying to make people laugh. He's not as much taking himself as a societal auteur as he is a comedian. He's trying to entertain. Sometimes he succeeds. In my opinion, more often than not, he doesn't. But, I mean, if you find him funny, whatever. He's trying to make people laugh is my point, and I find that a little bit easier to relate to, because that's basically what I do. than some guy who's trying to change the fucking world, you know, one tired meme at a time.
Well, yeah, and I've watched a bunch of. I've long been meaning to do a video on Movie Bob, just the bizarre mindset of Movie Bob, because I mean, he's had videos where he's talking about like Call of Duty and stuff, and he's been trying to address like the Call of Duty problem, and I'm just thinking, what the fuck are you talking about? What problem? He's like, oh, the video game industry is stagnant, and I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, no, all you're talking about, Bob, is Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and those sort of games. Don't get me wrong, I find them boring as shit. I have no interest.
I don't think he's wrong in that the industry is somewhat creatively stagnant, but what he doesn't do is go the next logical step and explain the economic exigencies that led to that being the case, discussing, you know, all the consolidation that's happening with publishers and stuff. Like,
it's like, who the fuck do you think you are to tell these people that what they like is wrong? You know.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, the problem is not that people enjoy Call of Duty. The problem is that studios think that they can only make Call of Duty.
Yeah, but the thing is, how much of the industry is that really? You know, I mean, I've never played one of these games, and I've got fucking hundreds of games in my Steam library. I've played fucking thousands of games in my life, and never once have I played Call of Duty. I really think they massively overrepresent how much of the industry is the Call of Duty, and it's not like nothing else gets fucking made. But in one of his videos, Bob is literally saying, I don't know how we can solve the Call of Duty problem, guys. I think it's here to stay. I don't know what we can do about it. It's such a shame. Why is it a fucking shame? Who cares? You know, how are they affecting you, Bob?
Yeah. No, exactly. It's like, why don't you do? Here's the thing. Here's my thought. I don't like Call of Duty. Here's what I do. I review it, and if I don't enjoy it, I say it's bad. End of story. Like,
exactly.
There you go. That's as far as it needs to go. You don't have to form a political party around the principle of hating Call of Duty.
Well, but that's the thing. In this video, here he is fucking plotting how to destroy Call of Duty, and then he realizes that there's literally nothing he can do, and it's out of his power. And it's like, right, okay, and he sounds bitter about it. You know, he sounds bitter, and it's like, Bob, what's the fucking point? What is the fucking point? I swear to God.
I've always used a pretty simple criteria for determining whether a game is good or not. Whether it's a game that I happen to like or not, my idea of a good game is what is it trying to do? Does it accomplish that? It's very simple. Does it attain what it's striving for? That's all I'm basically looking for. That's why, and this is a controversial opinion, a lot of people don't like that I think this, I happen to think Metal Gear Rising is a bad game. And the reason why I think that is because it's a dumb... If it were a dumb action parody that accomplished being a dumb action parody, then it would be fantastic. But there's all these times in the game where it takes itself outlandishly seriously and pauses for lengthy fucking political and social discourse. You know, that's my problem with Metal Gear Rising. It's not that it's necessarily a bad game in terms of its functionality or how its mechanics work. It's because it's a game that completely undermines itself. Yeah. So it's a pretty simple criteria. Conversely, a lot of people hate this opinion as well. I don't think Duke Nukem Forever was all that bad of a game because it was a dumb shooter and it accomplished being a dumb shooter. Congratulations. Like, whatever. I don't think it was that big of an abortion. But,
I never got around to it. And I tell you, obviously, like anyone with a brain, I was a massive fan of Duke Nukem 3D. So I don't know why I never got around to it. In fact, I should probably revisit it. I've never checked it out.
Sorry, guys. I don't know if there's clipping going on. I've been holding my microphone closer to my mouth here. I don't know if I need to back off or not. I don't know what's going on. Someone was commenting on mic popping, so.
Oh, I can hear you. Okay. Although I need to go and take a fucking another. I've got through another beer. I've only got one beer left. But okay. Yeah. So I'm just gonna take another slash, man. Sorry about this.
All right. Sweet. What about Perfect Dark? Hey, I like Perfect Dark. I actually, in my Far Cry Blood Dragon video, I drew quite a few favorable comparisons between Far Cry Blood Dragon and Perfect Dark, you know, with the kind of pseudo-futuristic setting, even the color palette a little bit, and the sort of way that you have multiple ways of, you have a stealth approach, but then you can go in guns blazing. It's a little Perfect Dark-ish. A lot of people don't notice the parallels, but that was the first game that I thought of when I was playing Far Cry Blood Dragon, which, for the record, I think is fantastic. And if you have an opportunity, you should play that game. One of, if not the best, DLC examples of DLC that I've ever played. Also, for the person who's asking, I also played Wolfenstein: The New Order. I didn't finish it. I got about a third of the way into the game, and I really enjoyed what I played. I actually thought it was pretty fantastic. The story, oddly enough, for a Wolfenstein game, even the good Wolfenstein games, the story is pretty garbage. I thought the story was actually pretty damn good, and I was roundly addicted to it. So, thanks for the kind words on the Dragon Age Inquisition review. People are asking my opinions on extra credits. I was asked this actually in a private message recently. I haven't seen enough of extra credits to opine one way or another. The only video that I've ever seen of theirs was I was exposed to them around the time of the Mass Effect 3 ending debacle. That whole thing. So I wasn't grossly offended by it. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was all that awful. But again, I'm not really familiar with what their viewpoints are. I heard something vaguely about them standing up for Sarkeesian or something to that effect recently. I don't know. I don't follow them. I didn't find them so entertaining, obviously, that I subscribed. So, but then again, I don't follow that many people on YouTube, just up front. Oh, somebody said, mentioning Shadow Warrior reboot. I've heard it's fantastic. I've actually been in the process of replaying the original. A friend of mine got me the original for Christmas, actually, and love it. I still remember playing it as a kid and thinking it was fantastic, but I have to play the Shadow Warrior reboot. Because there's everything I love about shooters and nothing that I hate about them. Let's see here. Somebody asking if I still think The Witcher is an Elric ripoff. Well, in my original video, I actually, if you watch that video to the end, I said at the very end, I might be wrong. I said, you know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But at the end of the day, the fact that the author, and this is the main issue, this is the entire reason that I made the video to begin with, every time Andrei Sapkowski has been given a chance to say he was inspired by Elric, he has refused to do so. Which is fine. At face value, you can say, oh, he lives in Poland, Elric hadn't come there yet, even though that's not actually true, and it's come out in recent years, he's written essays. Andrei Sapkowski, the author of The Witcher, of course, has written essays saying that he was actually, like, aware of Elric. He actually wrote an essay discussing the evolution of Western fantasy fiction, and mentioned the Elric series by name. Did not say that he was inspired by it, but mentioned it by name. So clearly, in his formative years as a fantasy author, which would be the 80s, which was still under communist rule, he was eminently aware of it. So that would be my only issue. I think the only reason that I was bothered by it is that Andrei Sapkowski refuses to say that he was inspired by Elric. I don't necessarily have a problem with The Witcher being that similar to Elric. Where it becomes a problem and lapses, I believe, into plagiarism is when it's that similar, you have a main character who's named the same thing and looks very similar, and you refuse to acknowledge the inspiration. That's the only issue I had with it, quite frankly. Best metal game soundtrack? I don't know, probably... you know what? I'm going to say Mega Man. The SNES, like the Mega Man X tracks, because a lot of that is like guitar synthesizer, but it rolls. I mean, like Spark Mandrill on Mega Man X, the original, or Gravity Beetle on Mega Man X3. Like, just come on.
I'd say best metal soundtrack. Are you kidding? It's got to be Command and Conquer.
That's pretty good too. I'm not even gonna lie. That's good stuff.
Pretty good. Fucking hell, pretty good.
Dude, and another one is the entire Guilty Gear series.
Which? Sorry.
The entire Guilty Gear series.
Guilty Gear. I'm not familiar with that.
It's a fighting game series from Japan, and it was actually made by a metal musician. So the metal musician named all of the sort of the characters after bands or musicians in heavy metal. Like there's a character named Testament, and there's a guy named Axel. You know, there's all these heavy metal references throughout the game.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man.
We should probably wrap this up soon. We've been going for a couple hours.
If you need to, man. Yeah, we probably should. To be fair, that's.
I have had a blast on here, though. I would do this again in a heartbeat.
Mate, me too. I've had a really, really good time. Really good time doing this, and I'm quite drunk now. And I've only had 3 beers, but I don't drink often, so that's why I don't. I really don't. But
lightweight, or can you put them away?
Oh no, I'm a total lightweight, mate. Total lightweight.
I don't drink. This is something people are going to learn. I don't drink at all. So.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just not a fan of how it tastes, quite frankly.
Fair enough. Good reason. I've met like vegetarians who are vegetarians for the same reason they don't like the taste of meat, and they're the sort of people who just get pissy. Everyone, they say, oh, I'm a vegetarian, and people are like, oh, you're this, you're that, the other, and this. I just don't fucking like it, mate. It's like, you can't really.
It's the same thing. I'm always getting the, oh, but you should try this cocktail, and you should try the strawberry, and it's like, okay, like that sounds. You ask them what's in it. Oh, strawberry smoothie and a twist of lemon, and it's like, yeah, that sounds delicious. Remove the vodka.
Yeah, exactly. Vodka tastes like ass,
Vodka tastes like garbage. Remove that, and it'll be a fantastic drink.
Well, that's actually why I don't drink very often. I'm not a big fan of spirits. Some spirits, I like Southern Comfort because it's quite sweet. But
yeah, you're strictly an opium guy, right?
Basically, yeah. Yeah.
I have an image of a languid Sargon in an opium den in like 19th century London right now.
That probably would have been me, to be fair.
With your like. Your Victorian era puffy shirt, like all askew. That's what I'm picturing in my head right now.
Is basically what we're saying. But yeah, no, we will absolutely have to do this again because this has been a blast. I've had a really good time.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we can both perpetuate the patriarchy together. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess we could actually get some like articles of interest next time, rather than. I mean, I've enjoyed doing it free form and everything, but I didn't really have anything prepared.
Dude, I think we did pretty well without the format.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have just a few interesting things to talk about that we can sort of screen share and stuff, so people watching can see it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Might be an interesting thing, but yeah, we'll definitely do this again, man.
Definitely.
Right, would you like to talk us out?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Thank everybody who showed up. Thanks for showing up and watching us. Quite a few viewers here. Goodness. And yeah, I'm glad to do it. And God fucking speed.